Welcome to another Soytheist live stream. Today we'll be responding, or rather reacting, to Earthling Ed talking about cancel culture, as well as we'll be looking at some of Earthling Ed's most popular videos, right? And I do have an announcement to make that I will be making sometime during this stream, so stick around. And while we're Oh yeah, and I think that covers it. Oh yeah, and if you're watching this on replay, right, there should be timestamps down below, unless I've forgotten, but I will try to add them. Anyway, with that cleared up, let's begin. So Earthling Ed was recently on LBC, that's Leading Britain's Conversations. And we'll be watching that video and let's just see how that turns out. So yeah, let's begin. So this is the video and I think we can begin.
The cat had been sort of shunted across the room with his foot and then slapped. He didn't look that there had been... I didn't see the cat. I couldn't inspect the cat. But it is possible that the cat is fine. No, but maybe the cat is all right. What if the cat is fine?
Hopefully the cat is, but you can hurt a human and the human ends up all right, but that doesn't make it justified or doesn't mean there shouldn't be punishment.
3 minutes past 9, you're listening to me.
I think this is going to be spicy, isn't it? So yeah, let's continue.
Rachel Johnson here with you, leading Britain's conversation on LBC till 10 p.m. And I want to turn to the case of Kurt Zouma, the footballer who kicked his cat and actually then proceeded to, I think I watched the video, it wasn't pretty at all. And obviously we don't want anybody to treat any...
By the way, before we continue with this, I'd like to know, have all of you watched that video? I hadn't watched it for a very long time until I finally decided to do it. So I'd be interested to know how many of you have watched the video that is being discussed here.
Animal with any cruelty. It was animal abuse. Kurt Zouma's cats have been taken away from him by the RSPCA. He's been fined £250,000, a drop in the ocean, I presume, to him. He's a Premier League footballer, plays for France. Listen, I thank God it's after the watershed. I'm not a cat person. I don't believe in animal cruelty in any shape or form. I am a animal lover. I'm the daughter of an environmentalist, a man who's won the RSPCA award.
Don't you think that it's interesting that she mentions that she is the daughter of an environmentalist, as if the two are related? It's like talking about racism and someone saying that, I'm the daughter of an environmentalist. It seems quite irrelevant to the discussion.
For services to animals. However, I do think we are in danger of overreacting and cancelling Kurt Zouma for one misguided kick in his kitchen, which his silly brother posted on social media. He's 20.
Okay, so the thing is that it's probably not just one misguided thing, right? It's probably something that's been happening for a while, right? It's just that this is the first time that we're seeing it. It's not that they did it for the first time. It's not like they must have treated the cat in completely well all the time before this incident, and suddenly they decided to treat the cat in that manner. If you don't know, they slapped the cat, they kicked the cat, and it's like that's not what happened, right? They've probably been doing it for quite a long time, right? So yeah, let's continue.
Clearly he's old enough to know better. But do we really want to live in a world where one silly mistake can lead to the end of somebody's career? I think we don't. I think he's taken his punishment. His cats are now no longer in the house. I think he should apologise and move on. I think there are bigger issues at stake, which is why I've invited Ed Winters to come and talk to us. He's a prominent vegan YouTuber, words I've never said in that order before. And he's behind the channel Earthling Ed. He's the author also of a book called This is Vegan Propaganda and Other Lies the Meat Industry Tells You. Ed, thank you for coming on LBC this evening. I speak as an animal lover, of course. Are we allowing our national obsession with pets, and I'm thinking of the animal airlift from Afghanistan and this incident in Kurt Zuma's kitchen, to obscure a much bigger problem when it comes to animal welfare?
I mean, it's a really great question. And thank you so much for inviting me on to speak to you about it, because it's obviously very important that we are outraged about instances such as this one where Kurt's clearly gone out of his way to abuse his animal for what seems like entertainment and fun on his part. And I think it is really important that we condemn that, but we should also definitely...
Yeah, definitely. I think that what Kurt Zuma did, right? Like, we might say that it's not as bad as what people do on a daily basis with regard to farmed animals. But what he did was not good, right? It was not neutral either. It was bad. And I do think that we should have, and we should treat it in that manner. And I think that we should be honest about it, as that says.
look at the bigger picture here, which is, why is it wrong to slap a cat but not to put pigs in gas chambers for a bacon sandwich, or to cut the throat of dairy cows because we want to have a glass of milk with our breakfast in the morning? So there is a bigger issue here at play, which we sometimes overlook with our kind of outrage at instances such as this one, but not at the bigger picture.
We anthropomorphize our pets. We give them Christian names. We give them funerals. We give them gravestones. We love them passionately, and yet,
do you think that's whatever the word is, anthropomorphic? I can't say it. It's a difficult word. But do you think that qualifies as that? I think not. Giving someone a name is not is not to treat them as humans, right? It's not to anthropomorphize them, if I said that right. It is just to treat them as individuals, as they deserve to be treated, right? So yeah, I don't think it is that. What is your opinion on that? I'd love to know.
under this, below the surface, all of this is going on, and the Animal Sentience Bill is going through Parliament, and the Tory shires are up in arms about it because it could ruin their sport, quite literally, because it credits animals with sentience. Then how can you then have legal shooting, mass industrialized killing of pheasant or grouse? How can you have hunting of the stag and the fox when it's clear that they feel pain? And so it raises, we don't want to see this because it actually alters our way of life.
So true. I mean, we're very selective when it comes to our compassion towards animals, and use the word sentience, which is such an important word, because when we recognize that the animals that we farm or who we hunt or who we kill, and also the animals who we love in our homes as pets, when we recognize that they're all sentient beings capable of, suffering, of feeling pain, also, of course, feeling happiness and pleasure as well, it makes it even more obvious that we live in a very kind of paradoxical situation where, as you say, we give, names to dogs and cats, but then we give numbers stapled through the ear to pigs and cows and the other animals who we farm, and we reduce them to objects who we...
Right. That, I think, is the wrong thing, right? I think that should not happen. I think we should not be giving numbers to individuals, and we definitely should not be stapling it onto them, or we should not be stamping them with it with hot metal. Like, that is the kind of stuff that is done. I think that is to treat animals in a way that they don't deserve to be treated, right? To give them names, to give them funerals, I think is perfectly valid, right? I don't see how that's to treat them as humans. It is just treating them as individuals.
find, almost we find it morally permissible to do terrible things to these animals, which if Kurt had done to his cat, well, we'd be even more outraged. No, the truth is, for the animals and
Interesting. You see, the cat who was kicked, right? People are rightly outraged about that, right? And say that's terrible, right? That's horrible. And if you ask those same people if it would be justified to kill that very cat, to slit their throat, people would say, well, that's even worse. That's even worse. And they're correct in that. Now, ask those same people if it's okay to kick a pig, right? If it's okay to kick a pig or slap a pig, and those people would be like, yeah, that's bad too. But ask them if it's okay to slit the throat of that very pig, and all the excuses start running through, right? The excuses of it's natural, it's the food chain, it's this and that and this, which is very interesting, I'd say.
farms and slaughterhouses, they wish they were only being slapped.
And when it comes to Kurt Zuma, which is my question to the listeners, I mean, obviously, if they want to discuss live animal exports, or they want to discuss the morality of fishing or hunting or any other sort of field sport, do you think it's proportionate what's happened so far? He didn't play in Leicester tonight, but that was his own choice. He's been fined. The cats have been taken away. Do you think that should be the end of the matter, or do you think that should be the end of his career?
Well, I think we have animal cruelty laws for a reason, and these animal cruelty laws aren't used to protect animals in situations where they're exploited conventionally. And if they're not going to be used in situations where the animals who we conventionally love are being abused and harmed, then it really brings into question the veracity of having animal cruelty laws in the first place. So I think that he should be taken in front of he should be interviewed by the police, and he should be found to have to. I think that there is a case here, for a criminal case, that he should have to answer to. And it shouldn't be for necessarily us to decide what the punishment should be, but rather the courts that are obviously going to be the ones to fulfill the animal cruelty laws that we've created.
Exactly. So you see, the thing about cancel culture, which is real, is that the problem with that is that people take justice into their own hands. It is mob justice, right? People who know nothing about the people who are not fairly looking at the instances, the evidence. These are the people who have their biases, who just go out there and decide to just cancel someone, to end their careers, to get them unemployed, to get them fired, and so forth. That is a problem because that is mob justice. What Ed is advocating for here is very different from that, right? He is not saying that that we should be deciding whether or not Kurt Zuma should be cancelled, right? Ed is not saying that. Ed is saying that there should be legal procedure, the proper procedure that is followed when humans are harmed. That should be followed, right? And the evidence should be seen in court, and the courts will decide. This is very different from cancel culture, right? This is not a cancellation. This is basic procedure.
No, I understand the logic of that. If he's committed a crime and he's guilty of animal abuse, then he should be made accountable for that. But the additional question, the underlying question, is the one that's concerning people, which is, should he be allowed to continue to play football for West Ham after what he's done? And my view, I have to say this, despite I'm sure I'll get a barrage of abuse, is I think he should be allowed, because his footballing career is separate from what he has done, possibly criminally, in his private life, in his house.
So wait a minute. So if you have a job, right, any other job, and you do something in your private life, in your house, when you're not on the clock, right, when you're not doing your job, you should not face you should not face consequences for that, legal consequences. I very much doubt it. It's not. I think that's very silly reasoning. Let's see what Ed has to say.
But most crimes are committed in people's private lives, and so that shouldn't be a reason to allow people's professional careers to continue. And the way I see it is a slippery slope. And I think that if we start to allow certain things like this to continue, it's setting a bad example for what people should be allowed to do to animals in day-to-day life. And, if we are a nation of animal lovers, which we say that we are, well, we have to start showing it and taking meaningful action against people who do go out of their way to abuse and cause cruelty to
So do you
animals.
put him on the same level as Carl Mendy, for example, who's been benched for being under allegation for multiple rapes?
Well,
That's like a very different. People do this, right? People will discuss something, and they bring in something completely unrelated. And if the vegan says that they're comparable, then they're like, well, how dare you compare that? And like it's not the vegans who are bringing up the comparison in that case. It's that you're just trying to look for a gotcha moment, which I think this lady is trying to do. But let's see what Ed has to say.
Well, I don't think it's about comparing the two. I think if people have done something that's criminal and wrong, they should both be punished within the constraints of the law for the individual actions they've committed. So I'm not necessarily familiar with the case you're describing, but I think that they're probably not comparable because the actions are, of course, not similar.
Right. Okay. So you think that what somebody does in their private life, if it's then, but it's obviously a crime, that should, as it were, affect everything about their personal life and their career too, because in his case, he's a footballer, he's a public figure. What if he wasn't a public figure? Let's say he served coffees or burgers in McDonald's. Do you think McDonald's should sack him for what he did in his private life at home with his cat?
Well, the problem that we have is that he's not being prosecuted. So
Exactly. So the thing is that it's not for us to decide, right? The lady keeps asking whether or not Ed thinks that he should be imprisoned or things like that. The thing is that the man is not being prosecuted, and we don't, and there is not a fair assessment of what he has done. So we can't say whether or not, up to what extent, he should be imprisoned, if he should be imprisoned, or any of that, right? And like any other crime you commit, right? If you're doing it in your private life, you're still punished for that, right? So I don't see the reasoning. Is the reasoning that he's a celebrity, therefore he should not be punished? That's like that's special treatment for celebrities, and I don't think that's a path that we should be going down.
it's hard to determine what an adequate punishment should be if he's not found guilty or not guilty in the courts of law. So if he's found guilty in the courts of law and then he serves his punishment, which could be a jail sentence as animal cruelty laws say that it could, then that would obviously, interrupt his career and stop him from having a job opportunity that he has right now in the future. But the thing is, we're speculating on something where he doesn't have a conviction yet. So the first thing that should happen is he should, of course, be arrested, and then he should go to the courts and he should find out if he is guilty or not guilty.
Are animal cruelty laws strict enough? Is what he's done an arrestable offence?
Ed is not a lawyer. Ed is not a lawyer. Ed is not the prosecutor of for the public departments, as far as I know, anyway. So I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why she's asking Ed that question, but yeah. Let's find out what he has to say.
He's certainly arrestable, certainly, yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So,
wow.
Thank you, Ed Winters. You've been very clear about that. You say that what Kurt Zuma has done is enough to cancel his career as a footballer, and you have explained why. I've explained that I think that is disproportionate to what he has done in his private house, which was
the thing about arrest, right? The thing about arrest is that it is always proportionate to any crime that's been committed if a crime has been committed. An arrestment, like arresting someone, is not a punishment if they have committed a crime, a severe enough crime. So yeah, if UK law states that animal cruelty laws are arrestable, then then Ed is just stating what the laws say. Ed is not coming up with the laws on the spot, right? So yeah, let's like I think this lady is trying to look for a gotcha moment, and I think like that was it. Like this is the moment that she's been trying to get. These are the words that she's been trying to get out of Earthling Ed, I think.
Was put on social media as a silly joke, obviously a really ugly scene, and we don't want to see that repeated in any household across the country.
Can I throw a question back at you just briefly? Because I'm interested. I'm interested to know what does he have to do to his cat to have his career impacted? You know, how far would he have to go? Because I guess it's where's that line,
that is a good question, Ed. I mean, I looked at the video. It wasn't pretty. It didn't seem to me that the cat had been sort of shunted across the room with his foot and then slapped. He didn't look that there had been. I didn't see the cat. I couldn't inspect the cat, but. It is possible that the cat is fine. No, but maybe the cat is all right. What if the cat is fine?
Hopefully the cat is.
Like, you see, abuse is not visible. Abuse is not visible. Someone, like a human, could be abused for a very long time and they could look just fine. You could never tell that this human has been abused. And they could look to be just fine. And they might be doing just fine physically. But it doesn't mean that the abuser should not be punished, right? So yeah, I don't know. That seems like very, very weak reasoning on her part.
But you know, you can hurt a human and the human ends up all right, but that doesn't make it justified or doesn't mean there shouldn't be punishment. So I just wonder, like, how far does he have to go to warrant a punishment that would be more in line with what I believe, in your eyes?
I haven't thought about that.
Of course,
I only saw the video, and it was it was a horrible thing he did. But the cat at the end of it did not look that much the worse for wear. But I think I see the point you're making. You're right, as you say, it's a slippery slope. But do we have a zero tolerance of any bad treatment of any pet in any house? For example, I'll tell you one example. My dog got a chocolate bar in her mouth. If she had eaten the chocolate bar, she could have had to have her stomach pumped. So in order to get the chocolate bar out of her mouth, I had to open her jaws and literally move her with my foot. Yes, I had to kick her in order to get the chocolate bar out. Now, what would you say to me about that?
But you did that in her best interest because it was for her health.
Okay, my mic was muted. So that's obviously very different, right? That's obviously very different because the lady here is trying to get a chocolate bar out of a dog's mouth because chocolate is like not good for dogs. So yeah, these are not comparable. What was Kurt Zuma kicking the cat for? It was not to save the cat from like having really bad falling seriously ill, right? He was doing it for his own entertainment. So these two scenarios are not comparable.
I did, but I mean, I did have to kick her at the same time.
Of course, but overall, it was a beneficial and net positive for your dog because without you doing that, she would have suffered more. But Kurt, what he did to his cats had no benefit to the cats whatsoever, of course.
I think we can agree on that.
That ended rather abruptly. Like, is there a longer version of this? Because let's see. Because it feels like there's a longer version of that, isn't there? LBC, Earthling Ed. Let's see. Look. I'm the first result. I don't think there is. Okay. That's interesting.
The cat.
Okay, so before we proceed, I'd like to make an announcement. So I am moving to a big city. I'm finally moving out of my hometown, right? And I'm moving to a big city. I'm moving to a place called Bangalore, which is in South India. And it's a big city, right? It's one of the four biggest metros in India. and which means that I'll be able to do street interviews. If all of you would be willing to watch content like that, I could definitely try that out. So let me know in the chat if you'd be interested in watching something like that, and if that's something that you think I should do, let me know. If you're willing to support that, right, and support me, uh, please do donate via the link in the pinned comment. It really helps me out, and I'll be able to do that because that obviously takes more production value, I guess. So yeah, and yeah, that's the announcement that I had, and hopefully I'll be able to do it. There are many universities over there. So do you think I should do it in universities, or do you think I should be doing it on the street? Because yeah, and what else? Yeah, do let me know which you think is more interesting, and I'll do just that. And I think that's it for the announcement. Yeah. And I do know that Danny from Lifting Vegan Logic made a video about this subject, this cat video, and where he says that Kurt Zuma did nothing wrong, right? So I'd like to watch that video and figure out. I think he's talking about relatively, but I've not watched it yet. So let's see, find out. Lifting Vegan Logic, Kurt Zuma.
I'll be honest, guys, not having to kick cats is just a white privilege. It's just a colonialist mindset. The idea that you can go ahead and survive without kicking cats is a white privilege. Only white people and rich people can go ahead and not kick cats.
Okay, I feel like this is going to be a sarcastic video, right?
Hey, what is up,
But,
guys?
yeah.
So the other day, I was at a soccer game, or if you live outside of the US, a football game, and I was made aware of the absolutely disgusting acts committed by Kurt Zuma against a cat. At the football game, I was actually in the process of consuming a hamburger, which I purchased from a little, stand. And of course, this hamburger was derived from an animal that was completely abused and, an animal that suffered and died. And I was also in the process of buying 50 wings, which we know was derived from around 25 chickens, right? Because chickens have around 2 wings, 50 wings, 25 times 2, whatever, basic math. And all those chickens.
Isn't that interesting when people eat wings? It's like each of those 2 wings come from an individual chicken. That's really kind of blows your mind when you really think about it.
Were completely abused and suffered and died. And in the process of, funding all of this animal abuse, I found myself so outraged at Kurt Zuma for kicking a cat. I bought those wings and those burgers just to satisfy my taste pleasure, but what kind of sick person goes around and kicks a cat to satisfy their pleasure? I mean, did you hear the laughing that occurred in the video? Absolutely disgusting. I myself would never just hurt an animal just to satisfy some trivial pleasure of mine. I was thinking to myself, like, what absolutely disgusting behavior. While I was munching on the dismembered corpse of a cow and then, of course, the dismembered corpses of 25 abused chickens, I was just pondering, like, I was just in awe at how somebody could just support such animal abuse. Like, I know for a fact, I myself would never, absolutely never pay for an animal to be abused just because it pleasured me. Speaking of which, this one vegan tried to tell me that, hey, maybe I should
Okay, so Danny is making a sarcastic video here. I really do enjoy it, but I feel like so I feel like that's not what this stream is about. So we'll watch that later, right? For the moment, let's watch some Earthling Ed videos, right? As I promised you at the beginning of this stream. Let's go. Earthling Ed. Let's watch some of Ed's most popular
just wanna
videos
start by-
because I feel like those are the most interesting, most popular. Okay, this is like a really long one. Let's watch this 13-minute one first, right?
It's not entertainment! It's violence! It's violence! It's not entertainment! It's violence!
No. Just to clarify, you'll shout abuse at young girls, but you won't have a conversation with me.
Wrong. Back up.
So what's wrong?
up.
Just to clarify, would you like to have a conversation? Because it's funny because when someone invites you for a conversation, no one wants it. So hang on. So you were shouting abuse at these young girls? No. I just like to have a chat. It's funny. It's just because.
Okay. So the thing is, it seems like these cowboys were shouting abuse at some girls, but the moment Ed shows up, they don't want to talk. Interesting. Brave, sort of meat-eating men, right? And these people are like, do you want to get beat up? And he's just trying to have a conversation. And I'll admit, if I was in that situation, I would have backed up because it seems dangerous, right? But yeah, Ed seems like incredibly brave.
When someone wants to have a chat, you don't want to do it. So hang on, when someone wants to chat to you, you tell them to fuck off. No, this is fine. No, it's all good. Don't worry, I'm here to chat with you. But the thing is,
I don't give a fuck.
oh no, because you were shouting abuse at people, and now when someone's, but you were shouting.
Y'all over here shouting shit.
Oh no, and that's fine. But you know what I want? I just want to talk to people. I understand. I get that. I do. I do. I get it. And I understand that. And all I want to do is just chat to you about it. No. It doesn't. I used to. What about my shoes? No, I don't drive, so that's fine. My shoes also, they're just.
That's good. Your car is leather, and he says like, I don't drive, which is actually something I can say as well. I don't drive. Yeah, I'm gonna say that if the opportunity comes up. Ed is brave, isn't he? Incredibly brave. My goodness.
Fabric.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Because you don't have to hurt animals, right?
Okay.
But you don't have to.
Everything we get
Sorry.
comes from some.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be from animals, right?
This sign that says dairies take their babies from the mom. You know what happens?
But they do, right?
They do, but you know what happens if they don't take that baby? That cow, that baby will hurt that mom and possibly kill it.
But you've got to remember, right, that these animals evolved in that way. Like,
Okay, let's find out what Ed has to say, and then I'll say something about it.
biologically, babies are supposed to suckle from their mothers. That's how they live. How did cows survive for so many years without us intervening? They're
Because
designed
people were
to
giving
survive.
them medicine to keep them
No,
alive.
not back.
It's like they can't comprehend what Ed is saying, which is like just entertaining at this point, really. It's like, how did cows survive without human intervention? And this guy just goes, well, human intervention. Well, we're not talking about the time now, or we're talking about a point further back.
Back thousands of years ago when cows were around and they were breeding, like, you know.
Yeah, they didn't have a choice. It was too cold back then.
Right.
They didn't have a choice.
But the fact
it
is,
wasn't hot enough for diseases.
All animals can survive without us, right? We don't
No.
need to take babies away from their mothers to help.
Not all animals.
We take babies away from their mothers so that we can take their
Let
milk,
me ask
right?
you this:
Please.
if you were the only human on this planet, or like you had your own little group over here,
Yeah.
of people, and all these animals are a lot like humans. So you're telling me that
right.
if you walked down a hill and you tripped and you broke your neck,
Yeah.
and all these other humans kept walking, you're telling me you would get up and survive from it without
No.
anybody coming to help you?
But that's not what I'm saying. You
Well,
said,
no, that's all it is. That's
No,
all it is.
but-
It's an accident. If something happens, it's an accident.
Of course,
Like that
but-
shit right there. If that calf breaks its neck or breaks a leg, it's pure accident.
But it's happened because of the rodeo. The cow shouldn't be in this situation
But
to begin
either way, it's just
But-
a matter of time. Nothing ever
it
is
doesn't
going to
have to
stop
happen.
fate or destiny. Ever.
But this isn't fate or destiny. This is created by us. We put them in that position and wrote them ourselves. This isn't fate or destiny. We decide this.
I like how Ed is talking to them in their language. This is something I have to learn from him because I'm planning to do these soon, right? He didn't respond with saying something like, destiny and fate, these are nonsense, right? Which I think he probably is the opinion of, But he's like, this is not fate and destiny. This is like you have created it, which I think is great.
For them
Would you
against
rather
their
that
will.
animal get sick and die painfully of some disease,
No.
or just a real quick on accident?
No, I would rather these animals were allowed to live their natural life like we want to do. We want to do the things that we do naturally as humans.
Okay,
Let
me
the
ask you
cows
this.
do what they want to do.
I do not want to be a lineman. I hate electricity with the fucking passion.
Right,
Like I
right,
hate
right,
it. It
right,
scares
right,
the shit out of me.
right, right.
But let me ask you this. My hand can be as far away from a line as it is from your face right now. Electricity will
Yeah.
jump out and kill me.
Right.
Electricity is not natural for us to fuck with. But
Absolutely.
if I did not work on electricity, you and everybody here would not have heat or anything.
And
right?
I'm very grateful for the fact that you
Okay,
do that.
so
but that
if we
still
didn't
doesn't
take
justify
care of
this.
these animals like we do outside of here, they only do this on the weekends.
I know that.
It's
But
only mostly Fridays and Saturdays.
But it's still abusive to them in the weekends. Think of all the animals that live.
The difference is that that person is doing it voluntarily, right? That person is doing it voluntarily. No one is forcing that person. No one is forcing that person to be an electrician, right? But that person is forcing the cows to be in that rodeo.
Live in the wild, like the lions and the whales and the
Hey,
dolphins,
there ain't no-
they don't need us to survive. Cows and
Oh,
pigs.
bullshit, they don't. If it wasn't for us, and poachers done wipe them the fuck out.
Yeah, but that's because of us. That's humans, right?
Yeah, that's
So-
because idiots with fucked up mindsets.
I agree, but what's the difference between hunting an animal for sport and roping an animal for sport?
Well-
both can be done for money and for livelihoods. People poach for
Yeah.
money, so there's not really a difference because both cause unnecessary suffering and harm.
It's to honor the history of what happened in the past. It's
I know.
not cool. If you
What happened in the past is also slavery, human slavery. What happened in the past is also misogyny, and like it's still happening, right? But it was much more severe back then. And like, but that should not be a reason to justify misogyny, right? That should not be a justified reason to enslave people now and so forth. Of course, it's cruel, right? And yeah, we shouldn't do it.
look at the anatomy of a cow, the art of roping them
I'm
by
popular
the
as
neck.
shit today. I got
actually
signs and
doesn't
cameras all over me.
Sorry, could you say that last bit again?
The art of roping a cow by the neck. If you look at the anatomy of a cow and look at the way that it jerks them by an anatomy standpoint, I was a vet tech for 6 years.
Very good.
So I worked on a lot of livestock.
Yeah, yeah.
I worked on dogs and cats too,
Of
but
course.
big livestock was my
Like a speciality,
yeah,
right?
that was my specialty.
Sure.
Is big animals.
Yeah.
And I worked on a lot of cows and goats and horses.
Yeah.
And I've worked on some chickens too. But when a cow gets roped by the neck,
Yeah.
it doesn't even hurt them. It's kind of like if your kid is running and you grab them by the arm and they kind of go like this.
They can dislocate their arm if you were to
They
grab them by
can.
the arm, right?
They can, but it's not normal.
But it still hurts them because they have pain in their neck. They have spines like we do, and their spines
They
can
do,
break, right?
But where the rope puts pressure.
Here, I'm gonna show you something,
it
okay? You
doesn't
tell
walk
me if this
their
is
way,
cruel.
And it
second.
doesn't put any pressure on their spinal cord in order for them
When
to
but it's
actually break
whiplash.
something.
It's whiplash.
It's no different than you rear-ending a car.
And no different than what? Sorry.
You rear-ending a car. it's
Yeah, and that
whiplash,
kinda
same
hurt,
shit.
right? That
Look,
hurts.
Tell me if this is cruel. This is me. This animal has no rope on it other than the one I used to hold on to.
So why
he
are they?
steps on my head and breaks my neck and my back in
But
two
why?
places.
But why is the bull bucking?
Why?
Why is the bull
It's
bucking?
a sport.
No, but why is
y'all
the bull
don't go
bucking?
up to
No.
NFL football games saying y'all are beating each other up. That's
No,
cool.
no. But
That
why
don't
does
make
the
any
bull
sense.
buck?
Why is the bull buck?
Yeah.
Because that's how they're bred.
Okay,
Why
but-
are you doing this? Because you're bred to be this way.
No. But the bull bucks because they don't want you on their back.
No.
They want to
No,
get
it's
you
not.
off their
No, it's
back.
not.
They want
Listen,
you off their back.
Listen.
Yeah, you eat meat, huh?
No, I don't. I'm
And you're wearing
vegan.
a tag that says
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here. So Ed is like I can't believe the sort of delusion, I suppose, that these people have. Like the bull is trying to get them off their back, and that's why that's kind of going that way, right? And they think it's not. So I think they sort of really don't know, maybe, that what they're doing is cruel, and I think that's the reason that these outreaches and stuff like that is important. And yeah, right. But let's see how this goes on.
That animal was killed.
The tag
for a
reminds
reason.
me of the
Looks like
animal.
you need some meat. You're kind of lanky.
Thank
I know,
you.
right? I've been doing
It's
this
very
shit
kind of
since
you.
about
But
6 o'clock.
the tag reminds me of what we do to animals. We can have a conversation, but if you want
Say
to,
mate, you're from Australia.
no. The point is right.
All I'm
that the
saying
bull
is-
pups to get you off the station,
What
but if
is
you want
it?
Say
to,
mate, you're from Australia.
no.
British people do say mate, don't they? I suppose that's why he says it. But yeah.
The point is right.
All I'm
that the
saying,
bull
man,
pups
is-
to get you off their back.
All I'm saying is if an animal gets hurt in a rodeo, it's an accident. It's no different than you driving. Listen, you don't voluntarily get into a car accident, do you?
But I
Yes or no?
voluntarily get in the car,
It doesn't
knowing the
matter.
risks
Do you
of that.
voluntarily
No.
get into a car accident?
No, but I voluntarily get in the car knowing the risks of a car accident. These calves
Okay.
have no, and the
Half of
bulls
these
have
animals,
no say.
When growing up riding with your parents, you did not know if an accident was going to happen.
No.
But you got in the car because you did not know, right? Right?
But
Yes or
I
no?
can't make my own
Yes or
decisions.
no?
As a child, I can't make
Man,
my own
listen,
decisions.
I'm being respectful for
and
you,
I'm
so
being
shut
so
the fuck up when I'm talking to you. It's disrespectful to cut
Well,
somebody off when I'm
I'm
talking.
not. We're having a conversation,
So,
man.
Now, what
It's
I'm
okay.
saying is, growing up,
He's throwing a loaded question, and when Ed doesn't engage in the loaded question, he's saying that it's disrespectful, which is interesting.
your
Yeah.
parents hauled you around in a car, right?
Yeah,
Okay, knowing you didn't know if you're going to get an accident or not, right?
right.
Okay,
Because I was
well,
a
let
baby.
me ask you this. You
Sure.
got used to it, right?
Well, I had no choice.
Okay, and then you grew up and
Right.
started driving on your own, knowing there's that slight possibility you might get into a car accident, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, these animals got hauled around to rodeos and in trailers and whatnot growing up from the
Yeah.
time they were calves until they were full grown, right?
Yeah, right.
Not knowing, right?
Right.
And then they got older and got to that ability where they could do this. Whether half these animals, you can walk out there with a bucket and shake it and they will come to you.
Submission, though. That's submission. It's consensual. What you do is
I
consensual.
got 14 horses and I guarantee
It's their. It's because they've trained. Wait, what did he say?
Though. That's submission.
half these animals, you can walk out there with a bucket and shake it and they will come to you.
Submission, though. That's submission. It's consensual. What you do is
I
consensual.
got 14 horses and I guarantee you I can get on every one of my horses.
It's submission, right? I want to tell you, there's a torture facility in It's not. There's a torture. There's a torture facility in Afghanistan where every day they put the prisoners.
in Afghanistan,
no, but
buddy. We're in
follow me,
America.
follow me. It was an American torture prison. They put the prisoners in a box every single day as a form of torture.
That's their fucking
Okay,
fault.
but listen to this. The prisoner over time would get up. Come on, please listen. The prisoner over time would get up, walk out of his cell, and get into the box himself because he'd been told to do it so many times. He became
It's no different than you
dominated.
getting into a car.
Yeah, so that's what's happening here, right? That's what's happening here, where they've been where they've sort of had a muscle memory. They've been sort of brainwashed to behave in that manner. Like, do you see the irony here? When the person throws a loaded question at Ed, and Ed doesn't respond to that specific loaded question, but still responds very politely anyway. That this person accuses Ed of being disrespectful, but at the same time, right, when Ed speaks, they just don't listen, and that's not disrespectful somehow.
But I do that
Because you have been
consensually.
taught
No.
growing up that it's okay to ride in a vehicle.
But
It's no different.
I choose to get in the car. The calf does not
They
choose to
choose
be
to
here.
get in the damn trailer. They
bulls
choose
just-
to
no,
get caught. They
bulls-
can run the
they
fuck
have
off if
no
they
choice.
want.
They have no choice. Where can they run? To the fences?
Here, I'll make you a deal. What are you doing next weekend?
I'm not here next weekend, unfortunately. I don't live in Fort Worth, so I won't be here. But the point of what I'm trying to make is we make that choice. They don't have a choice. They don't
I'm
have a
saying,
choice.
if one of y'all had a chance, y'all should come out to my family ranch next week, and I'll show y'all what it's like day to day for a cow and a horse. I would show y'all.
You know, if I was
and
here
I would
next,
show y'all what my vet bill. My vet bill probably totals 4 times what your house.
I'm not surprised, and I don't doubt that. But listen, if I was here, I would go to your ranch, and I'd also go to the slaughterhouse with you and watch them being slaughtered with you, right? Because it's not just about how the animals live; it's about the fact that they're killed as well, right? And we can't just ignore the fact that they're murdered at the end of it.
It's no different than them getting a disease.
No, it is because they're not killed because they're ill. They're killed because we can take something from them.
Yeah,
It's okay. There's no need for stress here. It's okay.
That's such a good point. Because it's like these animals, right? They're exploited in this way for as long as it is profitable for these sort of ranchers to treat them in that way. And at the end of it, right? At the end of it, they're killed, right? And the person just goes, I like how he doesn't respond when slaughterhouses are mentioned.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. There's no need for stress here. The thing is, right, we don't kill them because they're ill. We kill them because we want to take something from them, their meat. So it's not done because out of respect or because they're ill.
So you're telling me if a serial killer walked down the street with a Thompson submachine gun and mowed every one of us down, nobody would feel sorry for him because he killed a bunch of humans. But because one cow gets killed, all y'all throw a shit fit.
I wouldn't. Well,
No,
wait. I want to mention God for one moment. Do you
He just walks away. He just walks away. That's interesting. I don't know, but somehow he was. Remember earlier when he was accusing Ed of being disrespectful? This person is just the personification of irony.
think that God's happy that you took his creatures and modified them for your own use?
Do you ask him?
No, but I'm saying if you asked him, do you say God is okay for me to take the creatures you
Well,
built
whenever
and
my
change
time
them?
comes and I die and I meet him, I mean, I'll be more than
But
happy.
do you think you're playing God by doing that? By going against
Am I
what?
blaming God?
Are you playing God?
Playing God? No.
Because you're taking something that he created and manipulating them. So you're changing them. So God didn't create the animals that we have in farms now because they've been modified. So we've created our own
He
strain of
created it
animals.
first.
Exactly, and then we've modified them against his, well, presumably against his will. We took his animals, we said, God, I'm really sorry you didn't do a very good job. These cows need to be fatter or produce more milk,
Because
so
we
we're
see
going to
it from our own
modify them.
aspect. We want them a certain way.
Okay, so but God designed them the way he did. I thought God was perfect.
Yeah.
So why did God not design cows and pigs and sheep perfectly?
He
Did
had it
mess
from
up?
his own perspective, yes.
Ah.
Everything was perfect to him.
So you're going against God's version of perfection.
No.
Yeah, you are. You said that God designed these animals to be perfect.
Are we going against
and you
it?
said
Sure.
you said God,
Or we're
these
choosing
animals
that.
aren't perfect enough. So you went against God's eyes because
I
God,
haven't.
you did because you perpetuate a system by forcibly impregnating these.
I
cows.
didn't impregnate him.
You put your fist inside the cow and put semen inside.
No,
it.
I did not.
You said you did.
I put
did-
a baster in, yes.
And so you impregnated the
There was
cow.
no semen in it.
Oh, okay.
They were teaching us how.
Okay. But you did the action of impregnating the cow.
Yes, the action, yes.
So what I'm saying is, if
But I
God,
did not.
If God created these animals to be perfect, then do you think He's happy that you're saying, by the way, God, they're not perfect enough?
If he doesn't like the way I see it, then I'll answer to him when my time comes.
And when He says to you, why did you disrespect my creatures? What would you say?
Because that's the way we want it.
It's lovely with these Christians and how they apparently think God did a perfect job, but apparently he didn't because, well, they're modifying them, right? They're modifying the animals for their own greed.
What do you forgive you for sin of abusing animals, His creatures?
He can forgive
He forgives any sin.
If we abuse animals all our life, right, and then we turn around to God and say, look, I'm sorry, God. Whoa, I know.
We
I
can't
abused
say
animals.
sorry when we get there.
Are you going to say sorry before?
Yes.
So are you going to say sorry for abusing animals before you go to heaven?
Well, no.
So by the time He asks you, why did you hurt my animals, it'll be too late.
Well, if it's too late, then I guess condemn me to hell.
So would you rather go to hell and continue rodeoing, or stop rodeoing and go to
If
heaven?
I get sent to hell for it, I mean, damn me, I guess.
Is that not bad? You're not worried about that? So God created these creatures, and you're abusing them in front of Him. You're modifying them because He didn't make
I'm
them
not
perfect. Yeah, we've established that.
From what you see, it's abuse.
Riding them against them. Did God create animals for rodeo? In
Did
the
He
Bible,
not?
in the Bible, did it say, and these bulls will be used for men to ride on the back of against their will?
Does it say anywhere in there that we're not allowed to?
Oh, no, but it also doesn't say in the Bible that we're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to do lots of things, right? So.
But people put it in their own perspective and do things on their own terms.
I'm just interested to talk to you because I want to know what you feel. I just want to know if you believe that forcibly fisting animals, abusing them, is acceptable.
Do I think abusing animals is acceptable? Yes.
Okay, at least he's honest.
Adam and Eve, Dad.
We were chatting about all
Adam
things
and
rodeo,
Eve.
and we
We're all
were chatting about
incest.
the Bible.
I'm screwing
and
my
we were
cousin.
saying about how one of the things we were saying is about how God created these creatures, and He created them to be perfect, and we all agree that He created them to be perfect. But then the thing is, we've taken like His cows and His pigs, and we've modified them. So what we're kind of saying to God is, you didn't create these creatures perfect enough, so we're going to make them more perfect, which in my eyes is kind of blasphemous to God because He created them to be perfect, and then we go against His will by changing them. And I just thought that wasn't right because He did everything to be perfect. He created us perfectly. He created all animals perfectly. So why did He not create cows and pigs to be perfect as well? That's what I was asking this gentleman. I was wondering if you had an opinion as well, if you'd like to engage. Or you don't have to, of course. You can not talk to me, you can walk on, but I was just wondering.
This dude looks like an NPC. He's like a non-player character. He's like a video game character in a computer game.
the legend.
I'm getting ready to get on your balloons and leave these idiots alone.
Is that a yes or no to the question?
Yes or no to what?
So did we take God's creatures that were perfect and then say to
I know,
God they're
like,
not
yeah,
They're all
that's who he
perfect.
is.
So why do we
God created every one of them.
So why are they modified then? Why have we said the cows need to produce more milk and the pigs need to grow fatter quicker and the chickens need to grow fatter quicker if they're perfect already? Are we not playing God?
We're not playing God.
But we're taking his
We're playing
creatures.
cowboys.
Oh, the video ended? No. Ah, okay, the video ended. That was abrupt. I wonder what happened because, what do you think happened for the video to end so abruptly over there? Okay, chat. Which video of Earthling Ed should we watch next? Here are the we've watched one of these. I've watched this earlier, so let's not watch that because then you're not going to get my genuine reaction. So we have these 7 options: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which do you think should we watch? So these are 1, 2, 3. These are 4, 5, 6, 7. Which one should we watch? Let's pick. And while we're doing that, chat, I would just like to make a request because, you know, as I've said earlier, I do plan to do these sort of interviews myself. And so, like, if you'd like to help me out in doing that, if you'd like to help finance that, please do use the link in the pinned comment, right? And that would be great because I'm doing this to like have a good time with all of you, of course, and watch these videos. But I'm also trying to raise some money. So if you'd help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. And I hope that you're enjoying the stream, right? So yeah, if you think the stream is good, please help me out. That would be amazing. Have we picked a video yet to watch? We haven't. The chat hasn't picked. So let me just pick one and go ahead. You know, this it says that someone said, okay, this is like really, and this is like his second most watched video, and it says like it's time to change your life. Seems really dramatic, right? So let's watch that.
I wasn't born vegan, and I just want to start by saying that I wasn't born vegan, and I wasn't even born vegetarian. You see, for almost 21 years of my life, I consumed meat, dairy, and egg products. It's not just that I consumed them, I loved them, right? I loved how they tasted. I'd have them every single day of my life. I looked forward to the flavors and the textures. I looked forward to getting that nutrition and that satisfaction from consuming those products. I get Domino's pizza pretty much every single week, 2 for Tuesday. I'd always get Texan barbecue, I'd always get meat feast, and they'd always both come with extra mozzarella and cheesy stuffed crust as well.
Okay, that's I feel like that's how most people who go vegan, I feel like that's how they start off with. It's not like I feel like most people who go vegan when don't really start with being kind of plant-based anyway, and then they go vegan. I feel like the most sort of vocal vegans, at least I feel, do start off with being very meat heavy, I suppose.
I went into my local KFC so often that the people who worked there knew me by my name and knew what my favourite order was, which was a Zinger box meal with extra hot wings. So when I went in, they say, "Oh, hi Ed, you want your Zinger box meal with extra hot wings?" And I'd be like, "Absolutely, please, as quick as you can." You see, I loved the flavour of these products. I really enjoyed them. I used to wear things made out of leather and wool and silk and down. I'd buy cosmetics like shampoos and shower gels without ever considering whether or not they were tested on animals. And going to the zoo was literally one of my favourite things to do. And I did it because I was an animal lover. I liked observing these animals. I thought it was a nice thing to do to see them. I enjoyed seeing these animals. You see, this wasn't something, or veganism wasn't something that I was born with. The morality of veganism wasn't something that I was born with. It's something that I grew and educated myself on and learnt more and more about. Now, everything started to change for me about 5 years ago. I was having a pizza with a friend, and my friend was veggie, and I wasn't at this point. And I said to him, should we get bacon on the pizza? And he said, no. And I said, why not, right? Why would you not want to get bacon on pizza? I mean, bacon belongs on pizza. Can you even call it pizza if there's not bacon on top? And he said, Ed, I don't think an animal should die for a pizza topping. I said, what are you talking about? These animals are bred for that purpose. We give them life, they give us bacon. Bacon is life, right? That's what I used to say. I was one of those bacon is life people. But ironically, bacon is very much death. Now, at that point, I'd never once really contemplated why I consumed animals. I'd not ever really once contemplated why someone wouldn't eat animals. The concept of just consuming animals was so normal. It was so natural. I thought it was necessary. It's what I did every day. So why would I question it? Now, 4 years ago, around 4 years ago, May 2014, I came...
That's interesting because I feel like that's how sort of most people are, right? They don't really think about the morality of these actions. And they just proceed to do it anyway. And just continue participating in it. But yeah, that's how most people are, I feel.
I came across this story in the news. It was in the BBC News. It was about a truck carrying 7,000 chickens crashing just off the M62 near Manchester. And it really disturbed me, this story, because the journalist was talking about how hundreds of these animals had died on impact. In fact, I think in total it was 1,500 of the birds died on the impact alone. But what disturbed me even more was that there were hundreds more of them that were alive, but they were mutilated. They had broken bones and broken wings. Their faces were literally hanging off, and I saw pictures of it. Their faces were hanging off, their combs were hanging off, their beaks were hanging off, and they were alive, and they were suffering, and they were in pain. And I remember reading this article and thinking how horrible it must be for these animals, what terrible suffering they must be enduring. But at that very moment, it dawned on me that in my fridge, there was chicken breasts and chicken thighs and yesterday's KFC. And therefore, I was a hypocrite for feeling sorry for these animals when the only reason they were there in the first place was because I ate their flesh and therefore demanded that they be slaughtered on my behalf. So that moment, when I was reading that article, caused me to question my lifestyle, question my actions, question things I'd never thought to question before. It made me say to myself, how do I morally justify doing these things to animals? Are my taste buds more important than their life? I was a hypocrite for feeling sorry for these animals because they were there because of me. So I made the choice that day to change my lifestyle, to change what I ate. I became veggie, and then I learned more about the dairy and egg industries and eventually became vegan. Now, the purpose of what I'm about to say to you and the purpose of this film isn't to make you feel bad. It's not to say that you're a bad person, because quite simply, that isn't true. It's not to say that you're consciously living an immoral lifestyle, because again, quite simply, that isn't true. The purpose of what I'm going to say and the purpose of the film is to make you question yourself in the same way that that truck story or the truck crash story made me question myself. It's to make you maybe question the lifestyle that you've been living all your life and make you ask the questions that I asked myself. Are my taste buds more important than the life of an animal? No. How do I morally justify taking the life of an animal if it's unnecessary? These are the questions, the rhetorical questions that I was forced to confront within myself, and hopefully maybe you'll question yourself with. Now, if you get an idea and you put that idea into society long enough, it becomes a societal norm. Now, if you keep fueling that societal norm over time, it forms part of society's culture. You pass culture on generation to generation, it becomes tradition. Now, we need only look across the world right now to see that culture and tradition are not good benchmarks for morality. Let's just consider first off that in some cultures across the world, it's acceptable to treat a woman as less than a man.
Exactly. And that's not justified, right? So I could give you some more examples that there are certain cultures in the world in where homosexual sex is illegal because of culture. And of course, in some other regions, it is illegal because of the laws that were put there by Britain. Britain colonized so many places that they have their regressive laws. Many countries, many post-colonial countries still have those regressive laws in effect. Singapore, I believe, still has it, Section 377. India had it until 2018, so forth. But these sort of also shape the culture of these countries, and they sort of become heterosexist or homophobic, whatever you like to say. But yeah, that doesn't justify the homophobia or the heterosexism. So neither doesn't. So culture is not a good benchmark, and that's a good way of putting it, I suppose.
Hardly consider that to be moral. In some cultures, it's acceptable to perform female genital mutilation, but again, we would hardly consider that to be moral, even though it's very much a traditional practice. Let's apply this logic and way of thinking.
This is Ed before cancel culture. Because now, if you said something like that, people are going to be up in arms about, oh, how dare you? How dare you compare animal suffering to human suffering? You're cancelable. How dare you compare women of color to animals? It's so derogatory and so forth, right? That's the kind of response that you get now. But when was this video uploaded? Let's check. I'm not sure when. Do I have to? There's no date on here for some reason. Okay, this was published in 2018, I believe. Yeah, but let's continue.
Think into a situation where it's non-human animals that are being oppressed. The Yulin Dog Meat Festival is an annual festival where tens of thousands of dogs and cats are bred into existence. They're mutilated, they're killed, and ultimately they're eaten. Is it therefore moral to kill and eat a dog if doing so forms part of the community's culture or tradition? What about in Bocknell, where again, an annual festival where tens of thousands of dogs and cats are killed? Is that moral? What about in Japan, where every year they slaughter thousands of dolphins? Is that moral because it's traditional? Or in the Faroe Islands, where every single year they slaughter thousands of pilot whales? Again, is that moral because it's cultural? But if it's not moral for other cultures to kill dogs and cats and whales and dolphins, why would it be moral for us to kill cows and pigs and chicken and sheep and ducks and geese and all the animals that we kill and consume in this country? And can we really justify that behaviour by saying it's something we've always done, or it's cultural, or it's traditional? Now, it always strikes me so strange that we have this moral hypocrisy in society where we view some animals as different to other animals. Why is that? Why is it that so many of us in society get so angry and upset at the notion of a dog being hurt and killed?
It's because we've been told that way, right? We've been raised that way. But that doesn't justify our difference in treatment, because some people are raised to treat people of different religions differently, especially in countries where the divide is between, like, on the basis of religion and not so much on the basis of race as it is in the United States. So yeah, so in countries like in the Middle East, where the majority religion is Islam, right? So certain religious minorities would be persecuted. In parts of India too, I suppose, Muslims would be persecuted because of their religion and so forth. But that doesn't justify this difference in treatment that we have. And in similar manner, it doesn't treat the difference in perspective, difference in treatment that we have in with regard to different animals.
But laugh at those that get angry and upset at the notion of a pig or a cow or a chicken being killed. The Winter Olympics were just on in South Korea, and I found it so jarring because people were outraged that in South Korea they have a dog meat trade. People were calling on a boycott of the Winter Olympics, saying that some of the athletes shouldn't go because they have a dog meat trade, because they kill and eat dogs. There were some of the athletes there that actually rescued some of the dogs from the dog meat trade, and they were called heroes. They were seen as heroes, as animal rescuers, as lovers of animals. But while they were rescuing those dogs, they were going back and eating chickens and cows and pigs.
How do you feel? This is for the audience, and I'll maybe put up some of the comments on the screen. How do you feel about people who rescue animals and then eat other animals? How do you feel about them? Because It's obvious that these people care about animal suffering, but then they also contribute to it. I'd love to know your opinion on these people, because these are just not average non-vegans, right? So yeah, how do you feel about them?
Pigs. Why is it that we have this moral distinction? After all of these animals.
I'd also like to ask if you think that they're more hypocritical than just the average non-vegan, right? Or are they sort of doing morally better than the average non-vegan? I'd love to know what you think.
Animals. Why is it that we have this moral distinction? After all of these animals are alive. They all think, they all feel, they can all suffer, they can all show compassion and receive compassion. And most importantly, they all deserve to receive compassion.
Okay, we have some comments that I think I can put up on the screen. Okay, so Alois Salt, if I'm reading that right, says that they are hypocrites doing something good to make themselves feel good. So someone asked me to repeat the question. The question is, how do you feel about animal rescuers who also go back and eat meat? Are they doing something? Are they more hypocritical than just regular non-vegans, or do you think that they're actually doing somewhat better than normal non-vegans? The average non-vegan who doesn't even rescue animals just contributes to their suffering. How do you feel about them?
So what gives us the right? What gives us the right to arbitrarily point the finger and decide who lives and who dies? What gives us the right to inflict pain, suffering, and ultimately death onto an animal that wishes to avoid pain, suffering, and ultimately death? Now, one of the most commonly cited justifications that people use to try and excuse our consumption of animal products is the notion of a food chain. Now, food chains are incredibly important. They help maintain natural ecosystems. They help maintain natural population sizes of wild animals. Inherently, ecosystems help maintain the ecology of the areas of the world in which they exist. They are fundamental to the survival of those ecosystems. Now, what we do to animals when we selectively breed them, when we forcibly impregnate them, when we take their babies away from them, when we mutilate them, when we exploit them for what isn't ours, like their milk and their eggs, when we take them to slaughterhouses, hang them upside down, and cut their throats, has nothing to do with a food chain. It resembles nothing like you would see in the natural world. It has nothing to do with maintaining healthy population sizes or maintaining the ecology of environments. What we do to animals cannot be compared to a food chain because it couldn't be further detached from a food chain. Now, if I brought a pig into this room now, say a live pig, and I said to you, kill this animal using what you were biologically given, because all natural animal eaters in the wild kill the prey that they eat using what they were biologically given, which is their claws and their canines. So if I said to you, kill this pig using what you were biologically given, how many of you think you'd be able to do that? I mean, let's be honest, when you try to maul that pig would probably roll over and accept a little tickle off you. And let me tell you that pigs absolutely love belly rubbers. If anyone's ever spent time with pigs...
That's very true. I'd like to ponder on this issue of whether or not it's natural. I feel like it's very irrelevant whether or not something is natural. That's the first thing that I'd like to point out. It's very irrelevant. For example, many things are natural. Polio is natural, cancer is natural, and so on. But it doesn't make those things desirable, right? The polio vaccines are unnatural, chemotherapy is unnatural, but we still do it, right? So yeah, I'm not sure how that's relevant. But I'd also like to point out that maybe it is natural for us to use weapons and things like that, because we are a species that has developed to develop weapons and so forth. So I'd love to know what you think of that position. It's a position that someone made to me, and I think it's a good way to put it, I'd say. But before we proceed, we do have a super chat from Samyak Agarwal, and I'd like to thank you, Samyak. That's very kind of you. This will go directly for funding my street activism. So thank you very much. Let's put that, keep that on the screen for a while.
You can vouch for this. They love belly rubs. So when you were trying to maul that pig would roll over and accept a belly rub right there in front of you. You see, the utensils that we have for killing are very rudimentary and very crude. We're not effective predators. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that you do kill that pig. And now in front of you is not only a dead pig, but that pig carcass is now open. You've effectively butchered the pig, and in front of you lays the open carcass of that once living pig. Are you going to eat the raw meat? What about the organs, like the intestines and the cartilage and the tendons and the ligaments and the brain, all that nasty stuff that we don't like to think about? Are you going to eat that? Are you going to eat around that? What always strikes me as strange is that when people see these parts of animals, they say that it puts them off their food. When people see graphic content like this, they often say to me, I don't want to see that, it'll put me off my food. Why? Why would seeing the process of how meat and animal products turn up on your plate put you off eating them? If you were naturally meant to eat animals, not only would you be able to watch them being killed, you'd be able to kill them yourself. Yet so many of us feel the opposite of hunger when we see animals being killed. We feel repulsed, we feel angry, we feel sad, we feel frustrated. We don't understand why they're suffering so much. If we were natural animal eaters, this wouldn't faze us at all. Yet that's one of the most common things that people say to me. I don't want to watch the documentary because it'll put me off my food.
Yeah, if it's going to put you off your food, then maybe it should put you off your food. Shouldn't it? Yeah. Let's continue.
Why is this? How many stories do we see in mainstream media, but also in social media, of people, say, eating a KFC and they find like a piece of chicken brain in their KFC and they're outraged, they're so angry, they tweet at KFC and they say, KFC, how dare you? I found a piece of chicken in my dead chicken meal. In fact, there was a headline that said something like, students find dead chicken parts in their fried chicken. Well, what else are you expecting to find? It's a fried chicken box meal. Of course you're going to find dead chicken parts. But you find a piece of brain or a piece of kidney or something that you didn't expect to find, and all of a sudden you find that repulsive, or they find it repulsive, and it puts them off their food. Is that not strange?
It is.
Why do we find the body parts of animals abject if we think that we're supposed to eat them, and that we're naturally designed to eat them? Say I bring a cow into this room now, and I present you all with a freshly sharpened knife. And I say, who of you will cut the throat of this cow? Would any of you volunteer to do so? Say instead of a cow, it's now a 6-month-old lamb that I bring into this room. And I say, who of you will decapitate this lamb, cut their leg off, and have a lamb shank? Would any of you do so? More importantly, let's say someone did volunteer to do so. How many of you would object? How many of you would oppose that person killing the animal, stop them, or at the very least turn away, walk out and pretend it's not going to happen? Say you're walking down the road and you see someone beating and abusing a dog. Do you step in? Do you intervene? Do you try and stop them, or at the very least, do you call the police? Now, say instead of a dog...
Exactly. It's interesting, isn't it, how non-vegans react to other animals being harmed. Well, they will just, if a dog comes in front of their car, they will just slam the brakes and maybe even cause cause damage to themselves, maybe to save the dog. But when they are contributing to the suffering and killing of these other innocent animals, they don't seem to have a problem, unless of course they have to see it, as Ed points out.
It's a pig that's been abused, killed, and beaten in front of you. Do you still object? Do you still intervene? Do you still try and save that pig's life? At the very least, do you still call the police? Now, say that pig that's been abused in front of you is now being abused behind a wall where you can no longer see them. Does that now make it moral? Is the killing moral if it's out of sight and out of mind? Or is unnecessary killing always morally reprehensible? How many of us would oppose seeing an animal being killed in front of us, but go home and eat fried pig flesh, fried cow flesh, or a lamb leg? You see, as humans, we have something called moral agency. Inherently, this is what it all boils down to. Now, moral agency means that we are able to make decisions based on a notion of right and wrong. But importantly, it means we can be held accountable for the decisions that we make. Now, animals in the wild can't be held accountable for the decisions that they make. That's why lions and tigers and bears are not good role models for our morality. They kill out of necessity. They're obligate carnivores. They have to eat animal flesh to survive. We don't. And because we don't, our moral agency dictates that we are obliged to do or to purchase the product that contains the least amount of suffering. But it also means that if we choose to buy a product that contains suffering, we can and we should be held accountable for the action that we make. I want to do a little thought experiment. And the thought experiment goes, there's a cot with a baby in it. And with this baby in the cot, there's a live bunny rabbit and a strawberry. Which one does the baby eat and which one does the baby play with? Think about it this way. The FBI states that most serial killers began their life harming animals when they were children. Ted Bundy harmed and abused animals when he was a child. Jeffrey Dahmer harmed and abused animals when he was a child.
In case you don't know who these people are, Ted Bundy, I believe, is a serial rapist. I'm not sure, but probably, right? And Jeffrey Dahmer is a cannibal, right? Was a cannibal who was later caught and prosecuted.
Is it that leading criminologists and psychologists look at children who harm animals when they're young as potential red flags for humans who may one day grow up to harm other humans? After all, a lion teaches their children to kill. A tiger teaches their children to kill. A jaguar teaches their children to kill. And yet for some reason, we discourage our children from killing. Why is this? Because it goes against our innate compassion. Now imagine in that cot, imagine if the baby tried to eat the bunny rabbit, right? We think, well, that child should probably be looked after, right? We think there's something wrong with the child if they went to eat the animal. And yet when they grow up, that's precisely what they do. They eat the animal, right? So why is it that we don't like to see children harming animals? Now imagine if every child that was born into this world, imagine if they were taught that the life of a chicken should be valued with the same respect that we give to the dogs that we cherish in our home, or indeed even to our own self. Imagine if every child that was born into this world was told to view the life of a fish in the ocean, a fish they'll never meet, a fish whose life may seem inconsequential. Imagine if that child was taught that that fish should be allowed to live their life without human-inflicted pain and exploitation. How would that child ever grow up to harm or oppress another human based on entirely superfluous and irrelevant reasons like race or sexuality or ethnicity or whatever ridiculous reason it is that we choose to oppress each other over? How would that child ever grow up to harbor hatred to other humans if they were taught that all life was precious, that all life should be treated with respect, dignity and compassion, and should be allowed the basic fundamental right to live that life?
Exactly. What do you think of this sort of line of reasoning? Because it seems to me that I think because people can sort of compartmentalize these issues, right? For example, when people can say that killing a human is wrong, but killing animals is fine. I think it would also be possible to have it the other way around. To say that that a person who thinks that harming animals is wrong grows up to be a person who does harm maybe other humans. I think it's possible. I don't think there's a direct connection, obviously, but I do think there is a connection there. What do you think? I'd love to know.
Now, the animal agriculture industries, they know that what we see in this footage and that what we see online is shocking and that it upsets us and that it offends us. That's why they don't show us the truth. That's why they give us marketing labels and ploys to distract us from the reality of what is really going on. Now, one of the best examples of this is free range. This is something that I used to really buy into. I thought that buying free range eggs was an ethical thing to do. You see, when we see a box of free range eggs in the supermarket, what we do is we attribute our ideals of freedom onto that box of eggs. Now, freedom to us means being able to live the life that you want to live. Do the things that come naturally to you. Spend time with your friends and your family if that's what you want to do. But most importantly, freedom to us means living without fear, living in peace, living in harmony, living without oppression, without injustice, living without pain. So when we see that box of free-range eggs in the supermarket, we say those hens must have lived a good life. They must have done the things that came naturally to them, spent time with their friends and family if that's what comes naturally to them. But most importantly, we say those hens lived a life without oppression, without injustice, without fear, and without pain. We know that that is not true. We know that that is a lie. We know that free-range hens come from hatcheries where the males are gassed and macerated as soon as they are born. We know that the female chicks are often debeaked and placed into barns where they barely have any room to move and where many will never see the sunlight or breathe the fresh air until the day that they die. We know that all free-range hens end up in a slaughterhouse with a knife being pulled across their throat.
It's amazing, isn't it? So I think someone, I forget who it was, I think it was Hudson Tarlow who made the point that the label free range is not to make the animals feel good. It is to make you feel good, and I think that's a good point.
No mistake, there is no freedom in free range. There's another thing we get told, humane slaughter. It's acceptable and moral to kill an animal if it's done in a humane way. So I could ask you the question, how do you humanely take the life of an animal? But instead, let's think about it. The word humane means having or showing compassion or benevolence. So instead of me asking you that question, let me rephrase it a little bit and ask you, how do you compassionately, benevolently, or humanely take the life of an animal that does not want to die for an unnecessary reason?
There's no way to do it.
You can't.
No way to do it.
Humane slaughter is an oxymoron. It can't ever exist because we can never justify taking that life of an animal when they don't need to die, and therefore we can never do it compassionately or benevolently. Another thing we often get told is happy cows produce happy milk. This is something we're going to hear a lot more in the future, I guarantee you. Happy cows produce happy milk. Let's think about that for a second. Let me ask you a series of questions. Is the cow happy when she's forcibly impregnated? Is she happy when her baby is taken away from her? Is that mother happy when her baby is taken away from her? Is that mother happy when she's exploited for what she naturally produces for her child? Is she happy when she's loaded into a truck or a trailer and taken to a slaughterhouse? Is she happy when the bolt gun is placed against her head and the knife pulled across her throat? Again, make no mistake, there is no happiness in the dairy industry. There is no right way to do the wrong thing. And exploiting animals because
so when people figure out that animal suffering is bad and it is to be avoided, people seem to start looking for proper ways, maybe good ways to excuse it. But can't you just leave it there? Can't you just say, oh, this is bad, let's not do it? Why are you looking for a good way to do the wrong thing? It doesn't make sense to me.
it is unnecessary will always be the wrong thing, and therefore there is no right way to do it. Do not believe the labels and the lies and the adverts and the propaganda and the scams of these industries that seek to make money from you. They operate on supply and demand. The only way they can function is if people buy these products, and people aren't going to buy these products if they know the truth behind them. So instead they lie to us to make us buy something that otherwise we would not want to buy, because then they make money from us, then they can profit from us, then they can profit from the exploitation of animals. It is a lie. They have vested interests. Remember that when you see those labels and those pictures of happy animals. Those animals are suffering, they're in pain, and they will be until the day that they die.
Okay, here's the question. Do you think that if pictures of the actual scenario and the actual circumstances of animals were put on these foods, do you think that would deter people from buying these products? It's a sort of fun thought experiment that I think we could run. I'd love to know what you think.
So the question often becomes, we agree or most of us agree that what happens to animals is wrong. And perhaps it is immoral. So instead of abolishing the industries, why don't we just improve the systems? Why don't we just make the farms humane? Why don't we make free range mean free? Now the reality is, even if we were environmentally and economically able to give all of these animals that we consume big green lush pastures, open fields, and allow them to do what comes naturally to them, even if we found a system where we didn't have to take their babies away from them, where we didn't have to mutilate them, where we didn't have to forcibly impregnate them, we will always, always, always have to take their life from them. That is a reality of animal exploitation. No matter what industry, their lives will always be taken away from them. And because of that, it's irrelevant what quality of life we give them. The moment that we take them to the yard or to the slaughterhouse to take their life, that is abuse, and it cannot be morally justified. Do not buy into welfare. Welfare is not there for the animals. It's there for us to ease our conscience. You see, the animals don't care what labels they're given on the packets of flesh and secretions in the supermarket. They don't care if they're labeled organic or grass-fed or corn-fed or high welfare. Those labels do not safeguard the animals. They make us buy the product. They ease our conscience. Now, it always strikes me as strange that when we protest against something like the Yulin Dog Meat Festival, we don't say it's moral to take the life of a dog if it's done in a humane way. We don't say it's moral to take the life of a dog if they're given bigger cages or if they're labeled free range. We say taking the life of a dog for food is wrong and immoral and should be abolished, full stop, no ifs, no buts. The petitions that we signed to end Yulin are not asking for bigger cages. They're not asking for different labeling. They're asking for an end to the dog meat industry and an end.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when it's done in Asia, right, that's terrible. When it's done in the West, it's good, according to Westerners. Some Westerners, not all, I'd say. The incredible hypocrisy is just unbelievable. It's unbelievable, really.
End to the festival. So let me ask you, if the Labrador steaks that are being consumed in Yulin, if they came with an RSPCA approved seal, would that make it moral? If the minced chihuahua being consumed in Yulin, if that came with a red tractor approved seal, would that make it moral? If we brought all the dogs and all the cats that are being killed in Southeast Asia, if we brought them to this country, took them to British slaughterhouses and killed them in the exact same way that we kill the animals in this country, would that make it moral in your eyes? And if it wouldn't, why on earth would it be moral to kill the animals that we eat using these methods? If you have companion animals at home, say like a dog or a cat, a hamster, a rabbit, a gerbil, whatever animal it is, if you have an animal at home that you love and whose existence you cherish, if they needed to be put down and euthanized, would you take them to a slaughterhouse to have that done? Exactly. And if you wouldn't, that should tell you all you need to know about how humane a slaughterhouse can be. Now, animals have one chance at life.
That's a good way to put it. Because instead of arguing with someone about whether or not slaughterhouses are humane or not, we should just ask them if they would take a dog or if they would take their companion animal to a slaughterhouse when they have to be put down.
They have one existence. Who are we to take that one chance at life away from them because we value the taste of their flesh and their secretions? A meal to us lasts a matter of minutes, an inconsequential amount of time. It's a meal that we forget about as soon as we've finished. But that meal has cost the entire existence of an animal. We take their life for minutes of pleasure. What right do we have to do that, not only as a species, but as individuals? Let me ask those questions again. Are my taste buds, or are our taste buds, more important than the life of an animal?
No.
How do we morally justify doing these things if it's unnecessary and if we don't need to? Now, as a vegan, I eat all the foods that I used to eat, all the foods that I used to enjoy, all the foods that I used to crave. I ate mac and cheese and spaghetti bolognese and lasagna and stir fries and curries and burritos and nachos and fajitas and tacos. I ate cupcakes and muffins and cheesecakes and chocolate cakes and sweets. I ate all the foods I used to love, all the foods I used to crave. but now I do so without harming animals. There's no dead animals, there's no exploited animal secretions, there's no gristle,
Just the
there's no
vegan versions,
hormones,
right?
there's no antibiotics. They're made from plants. How simple is that, right? Sometimes people say to me, veganism is restrictive. Now, before I was vegan, I had one type of milk, cow's milk. Now I have oat milk, and rice milk, and soy milk, and coconut milk, and almond milk, and cashew milk, and hazelnut milk. I cook with ingredients and foods I'd never heard of before I went vegan. When I used to open my fridge, it would look like a morgue. It would just be dead chickens everywhere. Sometimes the occasional dead cow, maybe the occasional dead pig, predominantly dead chicken. Now when I open up my fridge, it's a garden. There's so many colours. There's such a beautiful array of foods I look forward to cooking. Going vegan encouraged me to reinvent the ways that I cooked, cook with ingredients I'd never heard of, and because of that, I enjoy my food so much more than I ever did because it allowed me to reinvent my culinary experience and explore flavours I'd never considered as being something that I should eat. Now, the American Dietetic Association...
Okay, that's I'm not sure about that point, and I don't think that it should be something that should be stressed. Maybe because the non-vegan can just respond to that by saying, "Well, you have all of that, but I have all of that plus this." It's not about variety, I suppose. It's that, even if you have more variety and that stuff is just irrelevant, I'd say. But yeah. Before we proceed, we have a donation via the link in the pinned comment, right? And I'd just like to read that out before we go any further. So Josephine has tipped $4.07 and asks, what would your channel be about if it wasn't about veganism? That's interesting. I think it would be very similar to my Instagram account, actually, where I talk about identity politics and cancel culture and social or political commentary. Maybe even talk a little bit about religion and atheism. I think those are the other things that I could talk about. If you'd be interested, if my audience would be interested, I could still talk about those things, right? And still discuss them. I'd love to know, would you be interested in videos on that subject? If so, I'd be open to making them. It could be a way to reach new audiences. Let me know.
Association and the British Dietetic Association, which the largest bodies of diet and nutrition professionals in both countries have categorically stated that a vegan plant-based diet is nutritionally adequate, healthy and safe for all stages of life, including pregnancy. What this inherently means is that every nutrient and every vitamin that we need to sustain our healthy life can be obtained on a plant-based diet. What that fundamentally means is that the exploitation of animals and the use of animals is completely unnecessary. It has no place in contemporary society. It should be abolished. There is no reason for it to exist anymore. We can survive on a plant-based diet, eating the foods that come natural to us, eating the foods our body was designed to eat. Now, the way that I like to simplify this is the largest and strongest animals on this planet, or the land animals, the elephant, the rhino, and the hippo, all have one thing in common. They're herbivorous. And hippos, ironically, have the largest canines of any land animal on this planet, and they are herbivorous. Okay, so that kind of lays to rest that myth that our canines provide us justification to tear flesh because the largest canines belong to a herbivore. Now, gorillas share 98% of our DNA, and their digestive tract is almost identical to ours. And apart from the occasional insects, again, they're herbivorous. Now, I'm not saying that we're gorillas or rhinos or hippos or elephants, but what I'm saying is that we do not need to eat meat or animal products to be strong and healthy. There's that expression that goes, man eats meat to be strong like an ox, forgetting that an ox eats grass. We do not need to eat animals to be strong. Now, if it wasn't so cruel, it would almost be ironic, but it is incredibly cruel. Our leading diseases and illnesses that are currently affecting Western society, They've affected my loved ones, in fact. Things like heart disease, certain forms of cancer like breast and prostate and colon, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, dementia, hypertension, strokes. All of these diseases and illnesses can be massively attributed to our consumption of animal products. What is so important to note is that a simple switch to a plant-based vegan diet can not only prevent them, it can in fact reverse and treat some of them as well. There are people all over the West right now reversing and treating their heart disease and their type 2 diabetes by simply switching from animals to plants, from animal proteins to plant proteins, from the foods that kill them to the foods that add quality and quantity to their life. Animal agriculture is also responsible for causing some of the worst environmental calamities that we are currently facing as a species. It's responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than the entire transportation system combined. It's responsible for up to 91%.
Okay, so Ed is talking about environmentalism now. And again, I'm not sure if that's something that we should mention, because it really feels like talking about environmentalism and discussing racism to me. But yeah, how do you think we should discuss environmentalism when we're talking about this cruelty? I'm not sure we should.
Of Amazon rainforest destruction. It's also responsible for things like topsoil erosion, land desertification, and oceanic dead zones, which are vast areas of the ocean that are devoid of all life. In fact, some scientists predict that by the year 2048, we could have fishless oceans. In our lifetime, we could have fishless oceans. Animal agriculture is responsible for the fact that we are in the next largest mass species extinction. Make no mistake,
That's
there is
scary.
not a single living being alive on this planet today that is not negatively affected by our consumption of animal products. So I could ask you the question again, are our taste buds worth more than the life of an animal? But that doesn't even cover it all. The question should be, are our taste buds not only worth more than the life of an animal, worth more than our own existence, worth more than the life of this planet, in essence, worth more than every single living being on this planet? What sort of future do we want to leave behind for our children and our grandchildren? Do we want there to be a future left for our children and our grandchildren? The information is out there. The United Nations has stated that to avoid the worst effects of climate change, the world needs to shift to a plant-based diet. That's not a vegan activist telling you that. That's not a vegan organization. That's not vegan propaganda. That is the United Nations making a very stark and honest comment to people. So if you do not change the way that you live, and it is such a simple change, we will be the ones to feel the consequences. We will be the generations that feel the consequences of the actions that we make today. So I want to leave you with this series of questions. With the abundance of information that we have at our disposal every single second of every single day, with the fact that we can get our phones out and our laptops out and access not only this footage, but information that is unbiased and impartial, information that shows the truth about the health consequences of animal products, information that shows the truth about the environmental consequences of animal products, information these industries want to suppress. Is the fact that we can access that information, does that mean that we have the moral imperative to start asking ourselves questions? Like, is it time for me to make that change? Can I still claim to be willfully ignorant? Can I still bury my head in the sand and pretend that my actions do not have a negative consequence on others? Or do we have to begin to accept that every purchase that we make, no matter how inconsequential and small it may seem, has a profound effect on the lives of others? That every purchase we make in a supermarket is voting for a different world, a world where animals are still abused, or a world where animals are no longer abused. Every single purchase that we make as individuals has a far-reaching consequence and a far-reaching impact that maybe we don't quite grasp, but we have to understand exists. So the question I want to leave you with, and the question I want you to think in your head, is what excuse do I still have? What moral justification can I still use? And if I can't think of one, or if you can't think of one, ask yourself this question. Is it time for me to make that change? Thank you so much for listening.
incredibly powerful, wasn't it? How did you feel about that whole speech? Because I've actually, I've realized now that I haven't really watched most of Ed's sort of videos, and yeah, I haven't watched, and it's really fun to have like a community of people to watch these videos with. And it's really fun, and I really do enjoy it. I I do hope that you're having as much fun as I am, right? And I do want to carry this on, right? But I'd also like to make a request again. Because hold on. That I'm also trying to raise some money for the street activism that I plan to do, right? So if you're enjoying the stream, if you think I'm doing good work, if you'd like to support that, please use the link in the pinned comment to make a donation and ask a question. Ask me anything, really. I'll answer anything basically that you ask today, unless it's like, make it personal if you'd like. So I'll be answering almost any question that you ask. So yeah, do go ahead and do that. It would mean so much to me. And with that sort of a request, let's watch some more videos. What should we watch next? Let's make it another Earthling Ed video.
I just want to start by saying,
Which one should we watch? Let's watch some. Let's watch this one. I watched it halfway, then I had to let it go. But yeah, this one seems nice, doesn't it?
All manner of plant life. So you will not kill an animal to eat it, but you will slaughter all manner of plant life and eat it.
In a recent episode of Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast Star Talk, Neil brings up the concept of species bias in a conversation that he's having with Chuck Nice.
I just want to riff on plants and animals.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a lesson in here or insights, but I just have a lot of thoughts. I'm just going to sort of spill them out. Right.
Okay. Well, here's my first thought. Both delicious.
All right.
In an almost parody fashion, Chuck Nice instantly assumes the role of human becoming increasingly uncomfortable about conversations regarding animals and morality. But to be fair to Neil, from this point onwards, he seems to take the conversation in what at first appears to be a very positive direction.
Do you remember all of the concerns people had about tuna being caught by nets?
Right.
And the issue wasn't that tuna were being caught by nets. It was that the nets were
hurting
trapping
dolphins.
Dolphins.
Right. Because dolphins aren't delicious.
Yeah, this is about Seaspiracy, I believe. So before we proceed, I'd like to say hi to everyone who just joined. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. It's really fun to do these sort of live and watch these videos with you. But yeah, hi to everyone who just joined. It's amazing. Thank you.
And tuna is.
The fact that we're protecting the dolphins but eating the tuna. I remember thinking to myself, why doesn't anybody care about the tuna?
So Neil is actually making a really important point here, which is, why is it only wrong to kill tuna when dolphins have been killed at the same time as well? After all, morally speaking, both dolphins and tuna are sentient animals who have the capacity to suffer. So why is it not morally wrong to kill both species? But the problem is, from this point, Neil's arguments start to become deeply, deeply flawed. And he starts making straw man arguments, as you guys will see in just a moment. moment, because he seems to have a real blind spot when it comes to this concept of species bias, and his cognitive dissonance really starts to show itself. But before that, I just want to let you guys know about today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different courses about a wide variety of different subjects, which are perfect if you're looking to know, which be indeed 1 month free courses. Let's see where Neil takes creativity. So thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and now let's see where Neil takes this concept of species bias.
For those who would eat the tuna, and specifically not eat the dolphin because it's a mammal. So what you're saying is that in the tree of life, which has fungus and bacteria and plants and animals, you have taken this slender branch in that tree of life called mammals. And some people said, no, it's not that they're mammals, it's that they have big brains. Their brain is larger than us. Okay, so now
it's not that people are picking mammals and they don't eat mammals, because people eat pigs and cows and goats and so forth. So I'm not sure if it's just about not eating mammals. It's about not eating certain animals, some of whom happen to be mammals. But yeah, I don't think it's about being mammals. And it's not about big brains or being intelligent either, because pigs are incredibly intelligent, even when judging by human metrics. So yeah, I don't know.
Now we're saying we value them because they have big brains.
Now, firstly, people's species bias isn't along the lines of mammals versus other types of animals. After all, many of the species of animals that we exploit and kill, such as sheep, cattle, pigs, and rabbits, are of course mammals. Secondly, people aren't against dolphins being killed because they have big brains. It's normally because they're highly intelligent, which, yes, of course, comes as a consequence of them having big brains, but it's not the brain size that matters. After all, if dolphins had small brains but were just as intelligent, people would still object to them being killed in the same way. But whilst Neil is misrepresenting the argument that people use, it is also important to mention that intelligence shouldn't define worth of life, and so that still isn't a reason why it's morally acceptable to kill a tuna but not a dolphin.
Exactly, and let me just quickly give an example of this, right? Let me just give a quick example. So Isaac Newton was more intelligent than every human being, almost every other human being during his times, but that didn't give him the right to kill other humans. So if humans or certain animals are more intelligent than others, it doesn't give them greater moral worth, and it certainly doesn't give them, certainly doesn't give humans to the right to kill certain animals, right? Yeah. And before we proceed any further, we have a super chat that I'd like to show. So the super chat is from Fab. And yeah, let me just put it on the screen right now. So the message here is, any tips on starting a YouTube channel about veganism? I don't have much social media presence, so I don't know how I would start getting views. Oh, for sure. So here are a few tips. Make something that only you can make. So don't make videos about. Don't make something like, why is it wrong to kill animals? Don't do that. Like, no one's going to watch that, because the vegans already know they're not going to watch that. The non-vegans are not going to watch that because they don't want to hear something that makes them uncomfortable. So what you should do is to make something that only you can make. For example, one of my earliest videos that sort of reached a lot of people was veganism is a privilege debunked, right? That was the title of the video. And on the thumbnail, it was me on one side, right? And this sort of a British person on the other side. And I just wrote, third world vegan versus anti-vegan, and I put the BBC logo in the middle because that person was speaking on the BBC channel, right? And people just really clicked on that, right? They really clicked on that because they want to know what this person from this sort of third world country has to say about privilege, right? They really wanted to know that, and that's why they did it, right? That's why they clicked. That's why they watched the video. Another video that I made about veganism that really took off was about why indigenous people should go vegan too, right? It's not that they should be specifically be targeted, not at all. That's not good. But what should happen is that they should go vegan too, just like everyone else. And on there, the thumbnail was third world. I think it was vegan versus it was third world vegan again, using that label, versus Westerner playing the victim, because I was responding to a Native American person who was like very rich, right? It's not that they're like a poor person who also happens to be Native American. They're Native American and they happen to be Native American and they're incredibly rich. So they're playing the victim when they say that veganism is hurting them. So I did that. I made that video and people clicked that too. So make something that gives people that sort of brings them out of their trance, sort of like really jolts them. And I think that will get you many views. And I think you should share them in relevant Facebook groups maybe, or subreddits, because you don't need followers on Reddit and Facebook groups to have reach a lot of people. So that's what I'd recommend doing. I hope that's helpful. This was, I feel like I answered that question well, didn't I? What do you think? Is that helpful? I think I'm going to make a sort of clip out of this and post it if you think it's good, right? So yeah, let's proceed. And for anyone else who has any question really, please use the link in the pinned comment or the super chat feature. But do keep in mind that I get to keep more of the money if you ask it through the link in the pinned comment. YouTube takes a bigger cut than Streamlabs, right? YouTube takes about 30%. So yeah, please use the link in the pinned comment. It really helps the channel out. It means a lot. Thank you so much. Let's proceed.
Every living thing on
acceptable to kill a tuna, but not a dolphin.
Every living thing on Earth is as far away from an evolutionary place from the very first single-celled life as is all other life on Earth. Okay? So you're saying, oh, the brain is important for survival. Oak trees are still alive today, and they don't have any brains. Okay? And they're doing just fine. All I'm saying is that whatever struggles, trials, and tribulations we went through as vertebrate mammals, okay, whatever we went through, every single other living thing on this earth has also survived to this point.
That's a false equivalence, Dr. Tyson, because the species cannot suffer and experience consciousness, right? It's the individuals that can experience suffering and pleasure and fulfillment and so on. So the experience of mammals and the experience of birds and fish and so forth is incredibly different from the experience of an oak tree, because the oak trees, if you look at individual oak trees, they cannot suffer, they cannot experience pleasure and so forth. It's about sentience, right? It's not about the species as a whole. It's about the individual experience of these animals.
Species, that is, or evolved to fit this point. So you want to value judge it? This is a mammal, this has a brain. All right, but have you stopped and thought about what a tree is?
The problem is Neil is viewing every living species as an abstraction. He's removing or maybe overlooking the species-specific traits that are important when assigning moral worth to the individual species that we're talking about. And in essence, what Neil is doing is he's grouping every single form of life as being morally the same simply because they have life and have undergone evolution. The possession of life isn't what's important when assigning moral worth to an individual species. Case in point, Neil talks about oak trees, and he makes out or says that the reason that we view oak trees differently to animals is because they don't have brains. But it's not the fact they don't have brains that's important, it's the fact that oak trees are not sentient. They don't have subjective experiences, they can't suffer or feel pain. That's what makes them morally less important than animals who have brains, yes, but also are sentient. That's the important thing when assigning moral worth, not the possession of life, but the possession of sentience. Now, if a living being, animal or otherwise, didn't have a brain, but was sentient and conscious and had subjective experiences, then they too would also be worthy of moral consideration.
So you will not kill an animal to eat it, but you will slaughter all manner of plant life and eat it. So you're okay with that, but not eating the animals. You have judged that your side of the tree of life is more important than this other side of the tree of life.
No. So the thing is, it's not about whether it's close to me or it's not. If there was a branch of life that was like just further from animals than plants, right? Then that would not mean. Then that would not mean that and if that branch of life had sentience, I would value that branch of life as well, like the individuals in that branch of life. It's not about being close, it's not about being far, it's about whether or not they are sentient. That's what matters.
Yes, we are creating moral distinctions between animals, plants, and other life forms, but because of the reasons that I mentioned before, primarily sentience.
We basically eradicated smallpox. All right. Well, what about the smallpox microbes? All right. How do they feel about this?
The smallpox microbes don't feel anything about being wiped out precisely because they are microbes. They don't feel anything. They're not conscious and they're not sentient. Are we really so desperate to justify killing animals that we'll question the morality of wiping out microbes and safeguarding children from deadly diseases? I mean, where does this take us? Should we not take antibiotics because bacteria are alive? Should we not kill cancer cells because cancer cells are alive?
I'm not landed anywhere. I just think about all of life and all the struggles that life had to go through to get to where it is today in the tree of life, 4.5 billion years after life began.
But Neil, you're being disingenuous here because you have landed somewhere. By the fact that you eat animal products and therefore pay for sentient beings to be killed needlessly, by that fact alone, you have landed somewhere. This whole idea...
Exactly. People tend to say, oh, I'm neutral on this issue. I've not thought about it. But the neutral thing to do is veganism, right? So the people tend to view veganism and carnism on a spectrum. But that's not it. It's the spectrum is supporting animal exploitation. Hold on. The spectrum is supporting animal exploitation on one end, right? And opposing animal exploitation on the other end. And like this would be vegan activism, this would be eating meat. And veganism is like right in the middle. It's right in the middle where you don't give your money to either side, right? That's what veganism is. So yeah, let's continue.
Idea that you're discussing right now is precisely because you have landed somewhere and you're trying to justify where you have landed.
When I eat lettuce or cucumber, I'm thinking, like as they say with the Native Americans, I'm thankful to the plant. And in the same way, I'm thankful to the pig or the cow or the, whatever else. These are things that were alive.
Neil keeps conflating life with sentience, and Neil's argument basically goes, well, everything is alive, therefore I'm morally justified to kill anyone and everything. And why has he done this? Well, probably because Neil consumes tuna, and so by consuming tuna, he has at some point realized his species bias by the fact that he would consume tuna but not dolphins. Now, this leaves Neil with two options. The first option is he can obviously recognize his species bias and stop consuming tuna and instead just eat plants, or alternatively, Neil can try and find a reason why eating plants is morally the same as consuming tuna, dolphins, or any other animal for that matter. And unfortunately, as I quickly realized when I watched the video for the first time, Neil opts for the latter. He makes the justification that morally it's the same to eat plants and animals because plants and animals both have life. And unfortunately, he's overlooked the sentience of animals, which is why it's acceptable to eat plants, but not animals. And if we use Neil's arguments and logic, well then why is it morally objectionable to kill a human? Why is it morally wrong, therefore, for a cannibal to consume a human over chickpeas, or dogs, or cats, or pigs, or cows, or even dolphins and tuna? Why is it morally wrong for the cannibal to consume the human? After all, the human and every other species I just mentioned possesses life, and if we use Neil's logic even further, is it now more morally permissible for the cannibal to consume a human if the cannibal gives thanks to the human they're about to consume? Because that's the logic that Neil uses, so why can't a cannibal use the same logic? And in the case of the cannibal choosing a human over chickpeas, I'm sure the argument that Neil would use is that the human is sentient and conscious, the chickpea is not. The human suffers when the cannibal chooses to consume them, whereas the chickpea doesn't suffer. The chickpea can't suffer. In essence, the human is sentient, conscious, and has subjective experiences, which means the human has moral worth. But it's the same for the non-human animals. This is the foundation of veganism and speciesism. The fact that non-human animals, like humans, are conscious, sentient, and have subjective experiences, which includes pain and suffering. If it's not morally acceptable for the cannibal to choose the human over the chickpea because the human is sentient and conscious, then it's not morally acceptable for us other humans to consume the cows, chickens, and pigs over chickpeas because cows, chickens, and pigs are sentient and conscious.
I just think of all life as sacred, and I don't, after having done so, I don't value judge one life over another based on its proximity to us on the tree of life.
I view all life as sacred, which is why I choose to kill the most amount of life as possible. And again, that's a straw man argument, Neil. The reason that people abstain from killing animals isn't because of their proximity to us. It's like I've said before and numerous times during this video. Sentience, consciousness, and the capacity to experience subjectively. That's why we're against needlessly killing animals. So by Neil's logic, if you're driving down the road and a dog runs out in front of your car and you have two choices, the first choice being running over the dog and killing them, or the second choice being swerving onto a bed of roses and saving the life of the dog, by Neil's arguments and logic, morally, both those actions are the same. If we choose to run over the dog intentionally when we don't have to, that is the same, morally speaking, in Neil's eyes, as swerving onto a bed of roses to save the life of the dog. Or if you had the choice between cutting a cow's throat or cutting the grass, according to Neil's argument, which is that all life is sacred, cutting the grass is morally the same as cutting the throat of the cow needlessly. And even if Neil's arguments were morally valid, because of the feed that's used to feed animals, and because animal farming is the #1 driver of rainforest loss and habitat destruction, vastly more plants are killed for a non-vegan than they are a vegan. So even if morally killing plants was the same as killing animals, we would still be morally obligated to be vegan anyway, because by being vegan, we actually result in less plants being killed as well. So ironically, Neil, in an attempt to debunk veganism, has actually made an argument in favor of veganism, and if Neil actually lived by the principles and logic that he is using in this video, well, he would be vegan anyway. And look, whilst this video is undeniably frustrating, it does point to a really significant positive, which is that Neil is actually thinking about his own species bias.
I think about it all the time when I'm preparing food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't want to be speciesist.
And so yes, it's annoying, and yes, it's frustrating, and yes, Neil's logic is really, really illogical, but ultimately what it shows is that Neil is grappling with his own species bias. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video.
Okay, folks. So I think I'm going to carry on with this live stream if you'd like me to. But again, I'd like to stress that it would be really helpful if we could just raise some money for the street activism that I'm planning to do. If you can't afford to, that's fine, right? I wouldn't want you to go broke because of this. But if you can, If you think the stream is enjoyable, please do consider supporting it. It means a lot. And with that, let's continue.
I just want to start.
What should we watch next? Should we? I think the debates are the most enjoyable, aren't they? What do you think we should watch? Let's watch this Miley Cyrus one, shall we? Oh, let's watch this. This Miley Cyrus one. I think that would be interesting. Okay, someone just said that we should watch the Oxford debate. Would you be interested? That Oxford one with the Carol Adams, I'm imagining. I haven't actually watched it. I've seen clips of it online, or maybe I did watch it. I think I did watch it, but let's see. Would you be interested in watching me react to it? Because I could do that. Let's do that. Or shall we not? Or should we keep this stream about Earthling Ed? I'm confused now. Let's watch this Miley Cyrus one for now, and we can decide
But
later.
the reason that I kind of started this was because I had a fish that was highly intelligent. I would come through the door, and this blowfish would go to the side and get excited. I was vegan for a very long time, and I've had to introduce fish and omegas into my life because my brain wasn't functioning properly.
Miley Cyrus, who is well known for being vegan, has recently started eating fish again due to health reasons. So let's take a look at Miley's decision and see what the evidence and science says about eating fish. We are often told that fish is a health food, but with the ever-growing number of toxins in our oceans and the proliferation of disease and antibiotics in fish farming, is this actually true? And what about oily fish and fish oil? Are they even healthy for us to begin with? We perceive fish to be important for us because they contain essential fatty acids such as omega-3. Essential fatty acids are important for a variety of reasons, including regulating blood pressure, immune and inflammatory responses, and brain health. So let's look into the two main purported benefits of eating fish. Firstly, heart health. The idea that consuming oily fish and fish oil is good for heart health has become so widely believed that the fish oil industry is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, with over 100,000 tons of fish oil being consumed every single year. However, a meta-analysis conducted by Cochrane, a global non-profit that is regarded among the scientific community as being the gold standard when it comes to the reliability of its reviews, and published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, looked at 79 randomized trials involving more than 112,000 people, and concluded that increasing long-chain fatty acids from oily fish or fish oil supplements was not associated with a lower risk of all-cause mortality, cardiac death, heart attack, or stroke. The original idea that consumption of oily fish and fish oil is good for the heart came from a study in the 1980s. However, the same group of researchers who conducted the original study then did a follow-up that involved 50% more participants and concluded that those who were advised to eat oily fish, and particularly those supplied with fish oil capsules, had a higher risk of cardiac death.
Okay, that's interesting. Isn't that interesting? It's like the reverse of what was originally found.
Meaning even the original study was consequently disproven by the original researchers. And when all of the evidence is collated, a review published in the Journal of the American Medical Association states, given this analysis and other negative meta-analyses, our job should be to stop highly marketed fish oil supplementation in all of our patients. It is also worth noting that fish contains cholesterol, which can cause heart disease. And on top of this, a 2018 review published by the British Journal of Nutrition found that higher intake of omega-3 from plant foods was actually linked to a reduced risk of heart disease. The next purported health benefit of eating fish is related to brain health and cognitive function. Now, undeniably, the consumption of omega-3 is incredibly important when it comes to brain health. But studies have shown that higher fish consumption has the inverse result. In fact, higher concentrations of fish-based omega-3s were associated with high levels of cognitive impairment and even dementia. It is thought that this is because of the neurotoxic contaminants found in fish, such as mercury, dioxins, and PCBs, which negatively impact not only brain development, but aging brains as well.
Okay, this is so interesting. This is also interesting because I was always of the opinion, okay, eating fish might be good, but we don't have to, so might as well not do it because it causes suffering and exploitation and so forth. But watching this, wow, that's just it's just blowing my mind right now, because that's why I've not said anything. I realized I didn't say anything for a while. It's just blowing my mind right now that that it could in fact be unhealthy for you. Wow. Okay. Before we proceed, I'd just like to say that I just received a donation via the link in the pinned comment, which, yeah, and I'd like to read that out. It's from BG Rune, and BG Rune has tipped $10. Thank you so much. It means so much to me. And he says that Ben Grunwald guy is all right. Okay, wait a minute. Is that you? Are you talking? You are. If so, you're great. Thank you so much. It means you're absolutely right. You're quite all right. Yeah.
It is well known that our oceans are badly polluted, and the consumption of fish from the ocean means we too are consuming these chemicals by consuming wild caught fish. When it comes to farmed fish, they have also been shown to be high in contaminants, sometimes even higher than fish caught in the wild. This is due to industrial pollution that is dumped in lakes, rivers and oceans, and because many types of farmed fish, such as salmon and sea bass, are fed wild caught fish as food due to them being carnivorous. Meaning that whether we choose to consume wild caught or farmed fish, we are still ingesting dangerous pollutants and contaminants. A 2003 report from the Environmental Working Group found that 7 out of 10 farmed salmon purchased in grocery stores in several major cities across the US were contaminated with cancer-causing PCBs at levels that raise health concerns. Not only that, but huge amounts of antibiotics are used in farmed fish, with it being estimated that farmed salmon are fed more antibiotics per pound than any other farmed animal. And an investigation by
Wait a minute, what's going on? Okay, I think we're back, yeah. My laptop freezed for a while. I think we're back, yeah. We're ready. Okay. My laptop is giving me some problem right now, but we should be up and running soon. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, I think we're back, yeah. We're good. We're good to go. Let's start this again. YouTube.com. Wait, I think we should just go to history, right? Control H. Yeah, this is it. Oh no. What's going on? I'll be right back, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. And we're back. Hopefully, there will be no problems this time. So, how is it going, everyone? Let me figure this out, and while I'm figuring this out, let me know how all of you are doing. Because I'll have to figure this out. While we're figuring this out, let's just talk and let me know how you're doing. How have all of you been? Because I haven't talked to all of you for quite a while now. So every time that I try to open the browser, it just crashes. Right? Every time I try to open a second browser, it just crashes. So let me try a different browser. Let me check if I have Firefox. I don't have Firefox, but I do have Edge, I think. If we Miley Cyrus quits veganism. Okay, we can do this now. Thank goodness, right? Share screen, share system audio, window. Yeah, here we go. I think we were at this point, right? Yeah. Wow. You can't hear it? Is that right? Okay. Okay, that's a problem. Let me just check. Share screen, share system audio. Can you hear it now? Can you hear this now? Just let me know, because I don't know if you can hear it right now. Okay. Let me try again with Google Chrome. If we can't, then I guess we'll have to end the stream for today, or just talk generally. I'll just go and ask me anything if we can't sort of listen to the audio, right? For some reason, it doesn't work. I guess we'll just have to end this for today, and I'll try to figure it out. And while we're doing that, before we end this, let's do an Ask Me Anything. Just drop a few questions in the comments, or ask it through the pinned comment. And yeah, let's go. Okay, here's a question. From Marzi Dotes, who asks, would you try the Impossible Burger? Well, I have heard that they test on animals. I'm not sure. Like, I haven't looked too far into it because I don't really have the option anyway, right? I don't really have the option anyway. So I haven't looked too far into it. But if they test on animals, then I wouldn't. Because that's just not vegan, right? But yeah, I'd have to know more before I can form an opinion on that subject. But yeah, I'll have to just know more. Do you have any more questions, or should we end this here? Okay, here's another question from Kritikalia, who asks, "What are your thoughts on lab-grown meats?" I think it's going to be revolutionary, and I would definitely eat lab-grown meat when it comes out, for as long as it doesn't lead to an industry that causes animal suffering. Because if that happens, then I'm not going to eat it. But as long as there is no animal suffering and exploitation involved, I have no problem with it. I'm definitely going to try it out. So someone asked if they test Impossible Burgers on animals. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. Like, I've heard some people say it, but I've never looked into it because it's not an option that's open to me anyway. Okay, folks. I will answer all questions, but if you would like to help me out, please do use the link in the pinned comment. It would mean so much to me, and it would guarantee that I answer your question, because at the moment, at least, there are a few questions, right? So I might miss a few, but if you drop it to the pinned comment or via super chat, then I'll definitely be picking and answering your question. Okay, let's see. Someone asked, Antonio Diaz asked if there are sanctuaries in India. I believe there are. I haven't been to any, but I believe there are, yeah. Let me try a different video, right? Let's see if that works. Nope. Every time I open it, it starts flashing for some reason. Let's see if we have any more questions. Antonio Diaz asked if are there vegan communities in India. There are, I believe. The place that I'm moving to, Bangalore, has one of the largest vegan communities in the country. So that would be amazing if I could get into that. Nicholas Dickman asks, Soytheist, should vegans criticize non-vegans or be positive when they make more plant-based options? That's a good question. Hold on. So as I see it, I don't think we should congratulate them. I think veganism is the bare minimum, and instead we should say something like, well, it's about damn time, right? And if they don't go vegan, I think we should say to them that you should have more respect for yourself and know that you are easily capable of reaching this moral standard. that everyone else, that I'm capable of, we are capable of the same moral standard. Okay, we do have some questions. Someone asked, Jack Harkins asks, Soytheist, views on socialism. I know very little about economics, and therefore, uh, I don't really have an opinion on socialism or capitalism, for that matter, or communism or any economic system. I'd love to learn more about it before I can have a sort of solid opinion. So we do have another donation from BG Rune 1, who has tipped $5. Who says, second attempt, sent $10 earlier, but not sure it worked. It did work. I got the $10 from you. Thank you so much. It means a lot. You've donated $15 now, and that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. Do we have more questions? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to restart my computer and see if we can carry this on, right? But while we're doing that, I'll have to join on my iPad. So let me try to do that. The things that I do for this channel. It's fun. It's fun. Let me try that, right? Hopefully that'll fix it. Enter studio. Allow. Okay, enter studio. Here we are, folks. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to restart the computer. So let's continue. Let's continue. Let's restart this. Can you hear me all right while I'm speaking from here? This is from my iPad, this feed. So I can just show you around as well. So here's the light. Here's some of the lighting that I use. Do let me know if you can hear me all right, because I'm not sure. Because if you can't hear me, that's going to be odd. Okay, good to know that you can hear me. So I've just restarted the computer, and if this works, then hopefully this works, and then we can continue this live stream for a lot longer, right? Let's try this. Okay, we're back on the main device, and let's see if now this works. Okay, thank goodness. Okay, folks, turns out we can continue the stream for a lot longer. So let's do that. Share screen, Chrome tab, share, and we're back, folks. We're back. So let me just bring up the I view the donations on this device, right? So let me just bring that up, and then we'll be good to go. Hold on. Okay, so someone has sent a donation while we were trying to figure this out. So let's first tackle that, right? So Pale Possession asks, what are my views on anti-natalism? Again, this is something that I haven't looked too much into, the subject of anti-natalism. So I don't really have an opinion on it, but I do have a sort of related opinion. It's that for most people, for most, not people, I suppose, for most sentient individuals, I think we should try for something like antinatalism, where we try to reduce the sort of birth rate of these sentient animals. Because for most animals, their life is just defined by suffering, right? So I'm not sure if that's antinatalism, but it definitely is something related. It's close. So yeah, let's proceed with the stream and Miley Cyrus reaction.
Due to them being carnivorous, meaning that whether we choose to consume wild caught or farmed fish, we are still ingesting dangerous pollutants and contaminants. A 2003 report from the Environmental Working Group found that 7 out of 10 farmed salmon purchased in grocery stores in several major cities across the US were contaminated with cancer-causing PCBs at levels that raise health concerns. Not only that, but huge amounts of antibiotics are used in farmed fish, with it being estimated that farmed salmon are fed more antibiotics per pound than any other farmed animal. And an investigation by Consumer Reports found that 60% of frozen shrimp samples contained harmful bacteria such as Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, and even MRSA. The levels found with shrimp were higher than previous testing done on chicken, turkey, and pork. The issue of pollutants and toxins is so concerning that pregnant and breastfeeding women are advised to moderate or avoid seafood altogether. Yet at the same time, we also paradoxically refer to fish as a health food. But can you get the omega-3 fatty acids that you need on a plant-based diet? The 3 most important types of omega-3 fatty acids are ALA, EPA, and DHA. ALA is the most common omega-3 fatty acid in our diet and is found mostly in plant foods, especially foods like flaxseed and chia seeds, which are among the best sources of omega-3 on the planet. But it's also found in walnuts, hemp, kale, spinach, soybeans, and many more. And unlike fish, these foods are healthy and safe for everyone at all stages of life and do not pose a risk to pregnant women or their unborn children. Right. EPA and DHA are found most notably in fish and seafood. However, vegans get DHA and EPA by their body creating it through converting the ALA they get from their diet. There has been some speculation that because the rates of conversion appear low, those in the plant-based diet are unable to convert the required amounts necessary to be healthy, with the conversion rate of ALA.
Watching these foods is making me hungry. As for some spicy food. What I have right now with me is these sweets, which are not bad, I suppose.
ALA to DHA being somewhere around 3 to 5% on average. However, according to the FDA, a 3-ounce serving of canned tuna provides around 170 milligrams of DHA, but a 20-gram serving of flaxseed working on a conversion ratio of 4% will provide around 190 milligrams of DHA. In fact, according to the findings of a study looking at over 14,400 men and women, which was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, even though vegans have lower intakes of EPA and DHA, their blood levels of both were approximately the same as regular fish eaters, which indicated that when people do not consume EPA and DHA, their bodies respond by increasing the conversion levels from their intake of ALA. That being said, if you are concerned about EPA and DHA, you can get them from foods like marine phytoplankton or in the form of an algae supplement, which is no different to taking a fish oil supplement, except it removes all of the harmful chemicals, pollutants, environmental consequences, and the needless death of an animal, and provides the positive health benefits of consuming the essential long-chain fatty acids that we require. In the end, consuming fish is responsible for the suffering and death of up to 2.7 trillion marine animals every single year. It is responsible for the degradation and destruction of our oceans, and is not only unnecessary for us to live, but is actually damaging for our health. If we want to protect animals, our environment, and indeed ourselves, it is time for us to leave the fish where they belong, in the oceans.
Exactly.
And instead, it's time for us to live vegan and oppose these industries that cause needless violence, needless destruction, and needless harm. So if Miley wants to improve her health and cognitive functions, she should consume more omega-3 rich plant foods and take an algae oil supplement, which will give her all the benefits that she's seeking from fish, without all of the harm to herself, to the planet, and to all of the animals that she has defended up until now.
It's almost ironic how Miley Cyrus just, at one point Miley Cyrus had said that she would eat dirt before eating an animal, but now, well, she's eating animals, which is quite unbelievable to me. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up, unless you have some questions for me. And yeah, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. I can't scroll through these. Let's see if we have any questions in the comments, and I'll try to go through them. I'll try to find them. But if you have something that needs to be that you'd like answered urgently, or that you definitely want answered, then use the link in the pinned comment or use the super chat, right? It really helps out. So yeah, let's see if there are questions. So this is about, I suppose, when I was restarting my laptop, and yeah, it really does restart that fast. It's amazing. I love this device. So yeah. Apart from that, let's see if we have any more questions. So another question from Marzi Toads, who asks if I have ever tried a durian. I have no idea what that is, so I guess I haven't. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see. So Weiss M89, Weiss, or is it pronounced Weiss? I think it's pronounced Weiss. Weiss M89 says, eating fish during pregnancy or childhood can make children have lower IQ up to 10 points. Wow, that's very interesting. I'll have to check this out. They have provided a link as well. So I guess, yeah, I guess we should wrap it up here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. It was really fun watching these videos with all of you. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now, and good night.